Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bean Cells podcast, where Beanie Boys banter about brutal bops. Man, this has been a bit of a long time coming. Jesus Christ,
Yeah,
we
we haven't
haven't we
made a
haven't
video in
recorded
a
in a
week and a
minute.
bit.
No, it's like you've been saying. It's like the world's been conspiring against us. Like it
Yeah,
just
the
doesn't
world
want
has
the
honestly been
beans.
conspiring against bean cells. Like, first of all,
It really has, which is
we kind of ran
yeah.
out of ideas. Then afterwards, when we did have this idea, um, thank you, Jack. By the way, let's preface this. Well done for passing uni.
Yeah, no, mate. Well done for getting your degree, mate. Big up yourself.
Well done for getting your degree in the thing that you didn't study for. I said I knew you'd be great at the art of bean bongs or something
Yeah,
along
yeah.
those lines. But yeah, Jack wanted this, so we're finally giving it to you, lad. But the world has
Yes.
been conspiring against us. We were gonna do this yesterday, in here,
My dad
and
decided to
then
be a bit ill.
afterwards, yeah,
Yeah, so I had to
the
attend
world
to
is just
matters.
just trying to record this thing. We had some issues. His fucking computer was being a piece of shit, so
Yeah, no,
we wasted our
it's all
time
on my
by
end this week.
fucking
Let's absolve Sean of any
yeah.
blame because it's all been fucking me, man.
Well,
It like I've
we
it,
could have done something last week if I had ideas. If I had good ideas, we could have done something last week.
no,
Because
but
let's be
yeah,
honest,
don't
I
let
was
the
on a
audience know
holiday
about
last
our
week.
complete creative bankruptcy just yet. We have to fool them into believing that we're just a
Yeah,
wellspring of ideas at this point. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
we have
we're
ideas
finally at it.
because we would never have very recurring segments such as every single month we do a fucking discography ranking and a monthly metal roundup. And if there's a good album, we do an album review. And if someone wants to talk to us, we got to talk to them.
Yeah, no, cool. It's all yeah, no, but we can mix things around. We're not on a tight ass schedule or anything. But yeah, no, we're back at it again. Once again, back to it. We're here. It's fucking. How hot is it where you are? Because I'm fucking boiling, mate. I'm actually sweating.
At the moment, it's fine, but however, though, during the day and when I'm trying to sleep, it's a different story. It's just a different time. Just a different time.
It's just a different time, quite literally a different time.
That's
But yeah, no, I've
fucking
I've
hell.
been I've been fucking wallowing around my house looking like a fucking like an oil slick, feeling like I'm
School
gonna die
uniform's
any
not
second.
fun when it's hot.
No,
And for
I'm not
some
built
reason,
for it.
we still have to wear our blazers. We still have to wear our blazers, even though normally by now we don't have to. We still have to wear our fucking blazers.
What have your school not brought in the updated uniform thing?
Normally they do, but apparently, so
Jesus.
this time around you're meant to wear them, but no one's wearing them, so they kind of just don't give a shit.
Well, no, it's
So I
fucking
guess it's
mate.
all
Like
right.
during the day, the sun's like a fucking like an ever
I
present
got
fireball.
sunburnt, and that is the only way I managed to get tan is by getting sunburnt.
Man, you and me both. The first time I ever get like some real sun exposure of the year, I only have to be outside for like 20 minutes, and the rest of the day I look like a beetroot. It's a struggle. It's a real struggle. I'm a cave dweller
It
by
is.
heart.
We're being real British people by complaining about the weather.
No, man, come on. It's a time honored tradition. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
When it's cold, fuck off. When it's hot, fuck off. Let me live in like purgatory, like crisp, just middling days. That I'll take that. Like a light wind and like not freezing cold. That's what I like. Autumn is the go.
Yeah.
Autumn is the best fucking season for weather. I love autumn weather because
All
everything's
right.
just like got that nice breeze, and like it helps ventilate you. Whereas right now, like if I don't fucking bring around like two like cans of Lynx with me, like it's gonna be a problem for everyone around me because I just fucking it's
Yeah.
fat boy
I feel
problems.
you on
I
that one.
I, I
I feel you.
perspirate.
I'm a stenchy man at this point.
Yeah, no. We're stinky boys who like stinky riffs, It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of stinky riffs, we're not here to talk about the fucking seasons. We're here to
no,
talk about death.
Death, the Almighty, the pioneers of the thing that we like. Like one of the all-time greats, man, like Florida's own. We're here to discuss and rank the discography of one of the most influential bands in all of death metal. I mean, like they're called Death, and they played death metal. I mean,
And
it speaks for
one of the
itself.
bands
But
that plays
yeah,
death metal that then afterwards didn't want to be called death metal. Poor
did
Chuck
they
Schuldiner.
not?
No, Chuck, he always said, "Oh yeah, I see Death as just a metal band. I've always seen him as just a metal band." And there was a time when, obviously because they were signed to Relapse, they were putting an
Hmm.
like an ad along with Suffocation and another death metal band, and Chuck got
Yeah.
actually like annoyed at that because he doesn't want to be with the death metal bands. But Relapse were like, "Your name is literally Death, and you started this whole thing," and he never wanted to be associated with death metal, which is unfortunate for him that we've all kind of shoved this onto him. But
Yeah. I mean, I
in
guess it
our
is,
eyes,
but at the
it
same
is
time, like,
death metal. But
yeah, when people talk about the pioneers of death metal, like the two records are always Seven Churches by Possessed and Scream Bloody Gore, right? Like, so I guess I can understand his frustration in a sense, because I guess he
yeah, and he
started.
wanted to distance himself. I mean, everything became more proggy and shit like that.
Yeah, well, this
So
is the
you know.
thing. Like, I mean, they might not have considered themselves a death metal band, but they've ended up like influencing more death metal than.
Also, they do have the death metal band name because the name is literally Death.
But yeah,
And
but
I remember, I think there was one where Chuck said that he would like to have changed it. Like, he had an interview where they asked, "Oh, why the name Death?" And he said, "Oh, because it worked with the music, but nowadays I kind of wish I'd gone with a different name, but this is what I've got."
yeah,
So,
no,
you
sure.
know.
I mean, and to be honest, I'm kind of glad he didn't, because like that logo is fucking like just perfect. Like, it's one of the like
It devolved.
it
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 devolved.
did it did, but like the classic death logo.
I like the fucking original logo. Yes, it's fucking immature. Yes, it's dumb and it's full of just shit that's like, look at us, be shocked.
Yeah,
But
that's death
I
metal
love it,
though.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is death metal. And then they removed the spider and the fucking head that was impaled onto the upside down cross T. They
Yeah.
made it just blood drip, and then offers they made it super clean, just the word death
But no,
with the scythe
it,
still in it.
even in the later kind of renditions, is that the word? Even the later like incarnations, it's still iconic. It still looks sick. But yeah,
Yeah,
I like the original one best too. And it's just it's just wicked. Like, it's just cool,
yeah,
for sure. But I'm very glad, in a sense, that he almost didn't want to be considered death metal, because as we're going to get into, I think that kind of mentality meant that like their evolution.
yeah. It's an interesting one because it's like people were praising for created it, and he was the one to then break down the walls and not just be the same thing as everyone else is doing. And I think that's interesting because other bands have done that, such as Carcass.
Mm,
They were done for they was told for doing gore grind, but then offers they created a completely new genre by doing melodic death metal
yeah,
because they were
exactly.
the first to do that. Whereas Chuck created death metal, and then afterwards he started creating the like technical prog side of death
Yeah,
metal.
no, I mean,
So you know, it's interesting.
I'd say they're one of the absolute forefathers of like progressive death metal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you,
Oh yeah.
from Human onwards, like, I mean, that's like one of the fucking ground zeros for that whole style, really. I mean, you know, obviously you get bands like Cynic and Atheist and a lot of these other bands that would sort of carry on that thing. But I mean, I might be wrong here. I might be getting the metalheads throwing their history books at my head. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they were like one of the first, at least at that level of like prominence, to really
Oh yeah.
push that progressive element. And I mean, like, fuck knows, mate, fuck knows what death metal would sound like or what it would go for artistically
If
without
it
death.
wasn't for death.
Like,
Yeah.
I genuinely don't have any idea. Like, you know, I mean, it might have just remained, you know, what they originally were going for on Scream Bloody Gore. But anyway, speaking of which, what a place to start.
Yeah.
1987, if I'm not mistaken, it is 1987, isn't it? Yeah. Scream Bloody Gore. Their debut record. And like I've said before, it's kind of debated which one's which. But it's
Yeah.
either this or Possessed seven churches, which are like considered like the first death metal records, like the first
I'm
one.
on the Scream Bloody Gore train, but you know.
Yeah. So you know, like the thing that really captures me immediately about the album is that thrash influence, because obviously you know
Yeah.
they're coming at it. They're
As the
sort of taking.
you pointed it out of the 80s Slayer snare,
Oh,
the riffs are definitely more like all the way through.
yeah, definitely.
His scream is way more extreme than what thrash bands were doing, though. That's for sure. He was actually
Yeah,
doing a
without
death
question.
scream.
The vocal style is what sets it
Yeah, that
apart
was
from
probably like
like.
one of the most extreme vocals for the time, right? Because no one
And
else had really
easily, I
started
mean,
doing that.
the only one which I can think of in metal in general that I'd say was more in like guttural or like on a similar level of like screaming. Maybe Bathory is maybe the only one. Maybe like some Celtic Frost stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, Sepultura were kind of getting there a little bit. You know,
yeah.
like there was definitely some, but like, yeah,
But
just
yeah,
the
this
out and
guy
out,
was
like,
genuinely just like fucking howling it out, you know?
yeah, no, he sounded like a monster,
Yeah.
right? Whereas the other people kind of sounded like
Well, he
evil.
sounded like he was screaming bloody gore. I wouldn't say sound like a
Yeah,
monster. He
yeah,
did actually sound like he was getting fucking murdered because it was way more high pitched.
yeah, absolutely. Chuck's vocals on this record, I mean, they are very primitive by today's standards. You
Yeah.
know, we live in a world of like Travis Ryans and like Dickie Allens, who we get like tunnel throat techniques and all of this stuff, and but so it's definitely very primitive. But in a sense, I think that's the reason it
Yeah,
still
sometimes it's
works.
not bad to. I mean, it's not like as primitive as some brutal death metal. I mean, I know we say it all the
No,
time, but Disgorge, the fucking burble on cranial impalement, it's the same note throughout the entire album. Matty, where you're a sick vocalist, but
50
still,
minutes,
yeah, yeah.
ridiculous, mate.
And whereas, like, at least with his high pitched scream, there can be some difference, and he can change the fucking dynamics of it and the pitch and stuff.
And
We
there
can
is some
kind of picture it. Yeah.
enunciation.
Oh, there's.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
was incredible at enunciation, but maybe it's because obviously it was the more primitive version. It wasn't quite as like difficult and extreme.
Yeah, yeah, and I think he reached a certain. There's a certain record which I won't spoil, but there's a certain record where I think for the vocals and for the enunciation, he really reached like a
Oh yeah,
serious peak. I think for the genre at large at the time, at least, it's still really impressive. But yeah, the vocals are great, but like you said, that fucking classic 80s snare sound, like that
yeah,
cracky hardcore punk influenced kind of thing, which Slayer took, and then you know the rest of the bands kind of took. I could listen to that all day. If I need to
yeah.
like walk somewhere, you only need to give me music with that in mind, because it's funny, isn't it? Even though like blast beats are technically faster, right? To me, there's always like when you get like a fast thrash beat, it always feels faster,
Yeah.
because obviously blasts just feel like you're being
Blast is one
smothered.
dimensional though, because it's like da 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 all the way, whereas da 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 it has difference, and it kind of and
Yeah.
especially when there's the fucking they looked like I had no eyebrows there for a second. That was really weird. I was like, what the
Fantastic.
fuck?
I've
No.
changed.
What was I saying? Yeah, especially when you have the people who do.
Oh yeah, that stuff's like crap to me.
Yeah, and that's always confused me. But I realised that they just add in the left foot to have that one extra hit in there to go.
Yeah.
And it sounds so sick.
Love that stuff always. But
And if you
yeah,
got
no,
guys who separate the hi hat and snare, or if not, you do the hi hat and you do hi hat kick together and then snare on its own, or you can do kick and hi hat, snare and hi hat, kick and hi hat, snare and hi hat if you wanna, or whatever fucking symbol you're using. But you know, there's
yeah,
different ways to
exactly.
do it. But
Yeah,
the main
no,
way for the thrash beat is your cymbal and kick, your cymbal and snare, because the other version is mainly known as the traditional blast.
yeah, no, absolutely. But it's It's used very well here. There's some, in fact, let me just get out the track list real quick by going on my
My mind always
computation.
goes straight to mutilated.
Mutilated is definitely one of
Just
the
because of
best
that one
tracks.
part where it's da 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 da, and you're just going mutilated, mutilated over and over again. It's fucking crazy, man. I love it.
Yeah, no, mutilated is really cool. In fact, like I'd say, like mutilation into regurgitated guts is like a
Oh,
really good like 1-2. Zombie ritual, obviously,
classic.
fucking
That fucking
brilliant.
intro. Bow, diddle little little bow.
Yeah, like come
So
on,
good.
man. Like it makes perfect sense. Although I've got to say,
And then drink from the goblet of gore.
my fucking zombie whores, zombie
Fucking
ritual.
weapon zombie horse. Drink
It's
from the goblet.
like it is quite interesting looking at the lyrics of this album and see, like, especially obviously when we're doing like the whole discography, because you can imagine like at this point these kinds of lyrics would still be like legitimately like, whoa, holy shit, you
Yeah,
know,
what the fuck, man?
we're not that far past Slayer really blowing up. So like, you know, like sort of
This was
something
way
that's
more
like,
extreme because this was just a horror movie in
yeah, no,
lyrical form.
exactly. It's all,
And then obviously it's weird because obviously he matured and then his lyrics changed, but we'll get onto that.
we will definitely get onto that. I do want to say though, I think gun to my head, if I had to pick my favorite song on this personally, it's Evil Dead. I just oh,
Bless you.
oh, bless me indeed. My soul was trying to escape my body. But yeah, for me, like it's just that lead work. It's just the
Yeah.
epic leads.
I
Just
think
for me,
gun to
it's
my
such
head,
an
it have to be
excellent.
mutilation, just because that like that one part is just always in my head. It's crazy
It,
catchy.
yeah, no, it's stupidly catchy. I mean, in fact, it's quite impressive that you know, like such a relatively primitively recorded death metal album, because this wasn't done at Morrisound like you know, all of the like the Florida death metal bands would go on to do. This was
Sure.
I can't remember where this was recorded now, but it wasn't good up from Morrisound. You know, they hadn't quite got the production techniques down, which kind of lends it its own like really cool like sound.
Well, it
But
was kind of
for
like
something of this,
just molded off of the like we have the 80s snare. That's because it's molded off of the thrash albums from the 80s, because that's all it
yeah,
really had to go off of. And I'm assuming that they were trying to be thrash, but they were like, let's just add a bit more extremeness in. Like everyone wants to do that. It's just that be more extremes. I mean, Brazilian
yeah,
thrash bands, they took thrash, but they took it to a new level. And then afterwards, you got fucking death metalers who were like, let's take thrash riffs.
yeah,
Let's add a bit more
and then
chunk.
brutal death metal was as a result of death metal being a thing and going, well, how
Yeah,
fucking
and
far can
then
we
brutal
push
death metal
this?
was like, yeah, brutal death was, let's take death metal but add the hardcore like beat down parts into it. And then slams was like, yo, you know what? These like slammy parts, let's just make a song,
Of
but
just
that's it.
that.
And then after you got internal
Fuck
bleeding,
the rest of it. Exactly. But like that, yeah, I still find even to this day that sort of level of like one-upmanship in terms of
Oh
trying
yeah,
to
it's crazy how like it's actually evolved. Obviously,
massively.
uh, I am very new, and I was definitely not around when most of this was being done.
No, man,
So
me
this
either,
is
man.
like I'm so like at this point it's almost like everything's hit a brick wall. It's very hard to be more extreme, because the only way you can do that is by using Guitar Pro and fucking programming every single drum hit to be able to get to like some fucking like 600 BPM. However, though I say that, Archspire have posted saying, "Get ready to hit some 300 BPM," which means that somehow they've done. What was it, 400 BPM? It was something like that.
400
So they've
BPM.
gone
Fuck
fucking
off.
fast. And I think
Jesus
it was 300.
Christ.
They have a T-shirt. They have a T-shirt that's called 330 BPM. So I don't
Mm.
think they'll make a post saying, "Get ready to hit some 300 BPM." So it might be 400. It's either a joke, which fair
That's
enough.
fucking
But
inhuman,
knowing
isn't it?
Archspire, no, knowing Archspire, it probably isn't. So
yeah,
and then also as
they
we've taken it so slow, it's
well, that's the
hard
thing.
to
Extremity can take
where the
so many
evolution is.
different
So now
forms.
I think the only way that we evolve like death metal is because everyone loves the par shit as old school death metal has risen and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But however, we're seeing a lot of new. Well, I am because it's the main genre of that I enjoy. But like 2000 brutal death metal kind of stuff is like still lively. And
Yeah,
I guess the only way
massively.
that we can really evolve is by taking inspiration from other music and being open-minded rather than closed-minded of just
Ah,
I've
no,
been listening to Pantera and nothing but for 30 years. To quote Travis Martin.
exactly, and I think that's always just going to be the case for any good musician. You know, what I mean, you want to really when you create this stuff, you do want to like evoke feeling. It's not just about it, like music is art, not sport. But at the same time, I do like the sportsmanship of like okay, that guy was fucking like these guys were heavy, but we want to be heavier. Like, because I do think there's always going to be
Mm.
new ways to be heavy always being created. Like I like people think we've
Yeah.
hit brick walls, and we have in terms of like speed, we have in terms of like how fucking like low you
mean,
can
look
tune your
at
guitar. But
Bio Noise,
I just think there's so many
right?
ways
They're
that
heavy
extremity
because
can
they
take
added
form.
in Bio Noise generator. They're heavy because they added in the trumpet solos and with jazz parts, and it just makes it hit that much harder. Snuffed on
Yeah,
Sight
exactly.
it hits fucking hard because, as he says, it's what deathcore should have been.
Precisely, you know.
And it's kind of a different sound. And dude, I mean, I've been obsessing over that new fucking track that he did with Foghorn. That was crazy.
mate, me too, me too. I actually, yeah, we'll get back onto death in a second, but I actually listened to Foghorn stuff as a result of that. Have you listened to Foghorn?
No, I haven't listened to Foghorn.
Foghorn are fucking great. So they're from the Bay, like Snuffed on Sight. But the thing I like that I think it's one dude. I haven't looked into it,
I
but
think it's one dude.
yeah, no, so it's like it's like hardcore kind of beat downish, like tough guy kind of shit. But when he when he brings in a fucking beat down, just the sound of a foghorn plays. Just,
Yeah, they did that on the single.
yeah,
On the Snuff and Sight song. In the
it's so
background, they
good.
just
So
in the fucking
good.
background. It's so good.
Like every
That's what I
time it
mean. Just
happens,
add
on
in
the thing, I'm
some
just
random
like,
bullshit.
yes.
Add in some random
Yeah,
bullshit. Just
the
trying to
new
do
Snuffed on
something new.
Sight is fucking hard. But back to the topic at hand. Yeah, no, these guys were definitely at the forefront of making things more extreme. And I mean, you know, they invented a fucking genre that
Yeah.
we still
And also
rollick into
the
this day
lyrics
as a
became the
result.
staple, right? It's just let's talk about horror movies because let's not
Yeah,
talk about
no,
horror movies. Let's describe a horror movie. Sorry, in great
well, no,
detail,
precisely.
and then
I
people
mean,
will take it to even greater detail.
oh, always. I mean, you know, now we live in a world where fucking Infant Annihilator lyrics exist. You know, it's
And also,
always
it's very hard to be shocked because 5-year-olds
yeah.
have watched decapitation videos and all that bullshit.
Well, yeah, that is the interesting thing, isn't it? It's like in the internet age, like, can this stuff really like leave you feeling a bit like fuck? Like, I mean, there have been a few songs which I've heard like when I was younger, but I
I
can't
know for
remember the
me,
last time for me
I know
something
you said this,
legitimately
but
like left me feeling
Deicide,
like what the
when I
fuck.
first heard Deicide scared me, and I know that I've said that before. Deicide actually fucking like, oh, with that layered vocal, because I listened to Dead by Dawn, and that layered vocal was like one of the freakiest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I can
And
only
then afterwards,
imagine.
Prowler in the Yard, that fucking sample that they have all the time, where it's like that fucking messes with
Prowler
me.
in the Yard like made me feel weird. Like for
Yeah, and
me it was
it's mainly just that noise element that they have at the end of some of the songs, where it's like the boat horn or something, and that
yeah.
it just makes me feel uneasy. But also the album
It,
cover freaked me out before. Same as
yeah,
the
no.
Korn album cover.
Like the part that always freaked me out about Prowler in the Yard was obviously there's the outro as well, like where it's, and I can't remember the whole thing, but
Yeah, the
like
one
it
where
says like, oh, and, like everyone on the ride started screaming because they realized it wasn't stopping and they were all gonna die, and then it just sounds like a girl like kind of going.
right
I
at the
was
end
like
of the
listening to it
album.
like, oh, what the fuck is this? Like, I remember that did
Even
give
the
me the creeps a
start of
bit.
that album is fucked. I mean, it's just like hearing a robot voice talk about that shit is just weird.
Yeah, God bless JR from Pink Destroyer for being like one of the
He was
best
having
at
a hard
writing.
time back then, wasn't he?
Huh?
He was having a hard time in that album because
Yeah,
it
well, I
was like
mean,
about he broke up with a girl, and he says that the album's about complete like perversion and obsession, and he wishes for no one else to be like how he was.
yeah, no, it's that I think that's the reason why like Pink Destroyer lyrics are so uncomfortable, because it's not like
Yeah,
it's not like some records where you listen to, you go, oh, this is like a horror movie, this is like a really nasty fucked up bit of literature. Like there's always an element of like kind of truth to what he writes about, and it's always about
yeah.
obsession. He writes a
It's like
lot about
horror. Yeah, it's like
obsession.
yeah. That's the freakiest part about it. But it's like horror movies. You got the ones that are out there to shock you, and it's never like, oh dear. I mean, you know, you said about Terrifier. The film sucks ass, I admit.
Yeah,
But
it's,
everyone
well,
said it's one of
I
the
like it.
goriest films
I
they've ever
like it.
seen.
Is it a good film? Maybe not. I like it.
It makes no sense, and the acting's just terrible. But
The,
and
the
everyone's like, "Oh, it's
plot
the
is dog
goriest
shit,
film
but
you've
I
ever
just
seen. Be wary when you watch it. Be wary when you watch it." And it's like, the worst part of that film to me was when Art fucking put his shit all over the bathroom. Like,
oh
the
yeah.
gory parts weren't that bad. To
Did you not?
me,
Did you
shit
not kind of
everywhere
go,
is
oh,
worse.
when he fucking hacksawed her?
Not really. It wasn't that bad.
I
If it was
did
a
think
dude,
that was a
if it
bit
was a
like,
dude,
holy
I
shit.
probably would have.
Yeah, yeah.
If it was a
If I was
dude, I
in
probably
possession
would
of a
have.
vagina, I
Yeah.
probably would have been.
Because what's the third Friday film? The third Friday film with the guy who does handstands all the time, and then Jason goes straight down his fucking crotch
Oh yeah,
in the third Friday film. That makes me crease because
yeah.
I know that the fucking guy had his balls just like split in half. Blah.
Emaciated.
That's bad. Yes.
But yeah. Speaking, we've gone well. I'm glad we've gone way off track, because that
We've
reminds
gone
me I
way
do
off
need to.
track.
But yeah. Scream bloody gore. I mean, that guy was screaming bloody gore when he had his balls ripped in half. Good segue. Do you like my segue? But Scream bloody gore
Yeah, nice.
is I mean,
He didn't
it's
scream,
well
though.
Influential.
Internally.
Eternally influential, and it is still a great fucking listen. As you'll see, I do prefer What's to Come, but I think for a debut, it's
Yeah,
like
same.
it's ridiculous. But
I have one thing that's gonna get me arse raped, and I
go
know it,
on,
but I have my reason.
go on.
No, this is for the ranking. I'm not saying it until
Oh,
this
okay.
is
All right, cool.
where
We'll
I've
get
placed
into
one of
that.
these albums is gonna get me absolutely arse raped.
Man, me too. It's
I've
fine. Who
explained it
gives
to
a
you
shit?
before. I've
But
explained it to you before. Yeah.
yeah. Now we go to our next record, which is 1988. They didn't wait around. Next year they released Leprosy. And I actually sent, when I was listening to them for the first time, I actually sent you a message, because I know you hold this one in really high regard. I do too. But I sent a message to you just saying, this is just like Scream bloody gore, but like advanced in every single possible way, isn't it? Like it really, it literally takes.
Right about that.
Yeah. Well, your sound has just gone way weird.
Yeah, that's because I'm moving across the room, so I wanted to be hearable whilst I was moving across the
But yeah,
room.
no. Yeah, like they take what they had
We're
originally
really professional on this podcast.
Extremely. But it's very obvious from the moment that you press play on Leprosy that you're basically like looking at.
Also, can I just say, the fucking intro just that is like so fucking good. Like, probably one of my favorite intros to an album ever.
It's I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely good. But it is. It's wonderful because it's like they literally just went in the space of a year. They took what they'd done with Scream Bloody Gore, and I mean, in terms of catchiness, technicality, production as well, just like riffs, drums, like everything is just stepped up, like everything, like it's the perfect second album, like really, like
All that
in terms
traffic
of like
really
I
on
can't
point.
imagine unless someone was really enamored with how like fucking raw and straightforward Scream Bloody Gore is, which I can get that, but apart from that I
So
can't see
actually, you know
anybody.
what? A lot of people do like Scream Bloody Gore as is their favorite death album. I find lots of thrashers, sorry, find Scream Bloody Gore to be the best death album, which would make sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, I can understand it completely, but at the same time, um, I just think, like, apart from if you are just someone who likes their shit straightforward, I think you at least have to appreciate, like, just the immediate step up. It's very obvious that from the get go, they wanted to, like,
Hmm.
build upon themselves. They were clearly not a
This
band who were
was
like,
recorded at
yeah,
Morris Sound as well this time around, wasn't it?
yeah, which obviously, legendary fucking
Yeah.
studio, like
I mean,
one of,
actually, everything was upped on this because they got
yeah.
Ed Recker to do the artwork, who everyone
I
knows
mean,
Ed Recker.
I
I went all the
mean
way over
that
there to prove a point because you said you hold this album in very high regard. If I own an album on vinyl, that usually means I own it on, I have it on high regard, or if not, I found it in a record shop for cheap and I wanted it. But yes, if I own it on vinyl, I usually hold it in very high regard. But yes, this album is iconic as fuck. Um,
yes, it really is.
Logo nicely integrated. I mean, I saw someone make a post on the old emo, and
Oh no,
they say that Ed Repka is actually very boring because he says, "Yo, I have a really original idea for you guys, your band. I'm gonna have a character in the center, and then some sort of chaos or other character in the background." And you know, it's not wrong because that is all of Ed Repka's art. It's one centered character and then shit in the background.
it might be a formula, but it doesn't
But
mean
it's
it's
not
bad.
bad.
And plus,
It's not
no,
bad.
not at all. And I mean, like that is quite a. It's not exactly like fucking like too specific. You can do a lot of things, person in foreground, stuff in background. Like
Mm.
that,
It's what
that,
there
that
was
can apply to a million different fucking
there's
things.
the Zentrix album that he did where it's the fucking dude like this with the glasses, and offers two guitars
Oh
behind
yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then
I've
offers
seen that
there's like
cover.
another album Ed Repka did where it's the guy in the foreground with the fucking explosive thing and a bus exploding in the background. So there's just so many different ways you can do it. This different to that because it's a leper, obviously, and then
Yeah,
more of those lepers in the background and nice little huts and stuff like that. So it's. I mean, it
yeah,
tells you
no.
what the out that you look at this and you're like, oh yeah, leprosy. Yeah, that's a fucking leper right there. Um,
Absolutely, it's yeah. I mean that cover is again like it's a
iconic.
step up. Like, don't get me wrong, I do like the Scream Bloody Gore cover. Like, especially there's
Oh
that one
yeah, obviously it's
skeleton
great with
who's
all the
literally sipping
skeletons.
from a goblet of gore, who's just going. "Ah." I love it. Like, it makes me laugh. But
Yeah, you got the one like that, and obviously you got the one that's just, and then you got the guy in the middle who's just
they're
boring.
having a very good time. But obviously,
Good
just in
time,
terms
yeah.
of like
It's
pure.
the lads on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday you look like the Slowly We Rot album cover.
Yeah. We've all been there. We've all been there. But obviously, in terms of pure artistry, like that cover is just amazing. Like, you know what I mean? It's fucking
Also,
fantastic.
it's
Like, it's
pink. It's
yeah. No, the
pink, which
color
is
scheme is
just like
super
not the
unique.
color. Yeah,
No, it's not
I
not
don't
not
really
something
know
you
many
usually
other death metal
associate.
bands who've used pink and a blue and yellow logo.
Yeah, no,
You know.
it's the color scheme is definitely really interesting. It just catches your eye immediately. That fucking cover, like, without any effort. If you see that like on a shelf or even online, it just you're immediately drawn to it. It is brilliant. But the actual record
Mm.
itself, like I said, just
It is
immediately
crushing.
you're just looking at like the songs.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
so much
I've
more
said
going
it.
on.
Yeah, I said already, but to me the intro just catches me immediately. That's what's one of my favorite intros to an album. It's simplistic, I know, and maybe it's not very unique, but it catches me and offers it adds in the and offers just the drums that kind of
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah.
It's catchy.
The drum patterns,
And
and I
then
mean,
just this
obviously, you've
like the
still got
slow. Yeah, the drum patterns evolved a lot on this.
like they immediately start playing in some like really like they're not doing
Mm.
4/4. Like I think I counted
Yeah,
on the first song. I think it is like I think that they are playing in like 9/4 at one point, and then they move to
yeah. It
11
is very weird.
something like that. Yeah, then so immediately that sort of progressive edge, even at this point in time, is showing itself. When we are dealing
And
with
I
some
mean, as well,
serious
that's
musicians.
not to say that they didn't keep some stuff of Scream Bloody Gore, because the next track, Born Dead, is like straight ripping thrash with the fucking riff,
Yes.
and then
Oh,
afterwards like the
absolutely.
tapping part, which is so iconic. But that one's like
Oh,
very much in the
mate.
vein of Scream Bloody Gore.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, like
So good.
my favorite song off Scream Bloody Gore is Evil Dead, because it's got that kind of more melodic lead playing, and it just feels as though for so much of this they kind of like expand on that, and so it makes me so
Mm.
fucking happy. Like I think there's another one of those like parts in I don't know if it's Open Casket or Primitive Ways, but I mean, one of those songs, there's another one of those like kind of like tappy like lead parts, and it just like they really went in on the atmosphere too. Like it kind of
Mm.
feels like the melodic
Also,
element is brought way more to the fore.
yeah.
But yeah,
Speaking of
it's fucking
like
brilliant.
maturing lyrics, we have a more of a
Mm,
personal kind of account rather than straight like gore. Obviously, there's a lot of the straight gore stuff. I mean, leprosy, a village dying of fucking leprosy, Bored Dead, stillbirth.
mm,
Forgotten Past is about a dude who like opens up and finds the corpses they used to have, maybe mentally or in reality, and obviously remembers
mm.
the killer that used to be. Left to Die, which to me is like a war zone kind of thing, like a war
Yeah, right.
thing, because it's like no one's here to help you, you're left to die. And then afterwards, you got the song Pull the Plug, which is unique in the fact that it's a very personal account. It's still kind of it it's delving into the mental side of things, which is what Chuck would
Yeah,
later go on to really enjoy. Because I mean, obviously, Pull the Plug is about a guy who's thinking fucking off in himself, and
yeah,
some of the lyrics are way more like thought out. It's not how the guy off himself; it's what he's thinking about before,
yeah. It's got
like
more of
before
that
going through it.
introspective kind of thing
Yeah,
going on. Yeah,
and like that's a very popular Death song, and it's iconic, like riff wise, everything. Just from the intro, you immediately know what that is. Um,
yeah. No, it's been covered a bunch of times too. Pull the
no,
plug. Like
yeah,
there's been a few. I know I think Revocation have done Pull the Plug. There's been a few. I think.
my old
But you can
band
do
almost
there's.
covered Pull the Plug.
Did you?
Yeah, we were going to, but then afterwards, split up.
Fair. No, but maybe at another point you can cover Pull the Plug. But
Maybe.
yeah, it is. I mean, it is a banger. I think the second half of this album, like for me, is
Oh,
where it really
side
starts
B,
to.
side B. Yeah, the second half. Sorry, it's because it's Pull the Plug does start on side B, but yes, I mean, there's only 8 tracks, so you can't really go wrong. But the second
No,
half of this is so good. I mean, the last track,
it,
Choke on It, is the
I
unfortunate
love
song name,
Choke on It.
but however, the Choke on It, Death is all around, is just like the fucking like
Yes.
this is death because it's death is all around, and in the end, death was ending up being all around because they're the most fucking popular death metal band, and death is all around because you look at someone and death.
Yeah, I know. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Hello.
Cheers
Hello.
for swearing to all our viewers,
Love you too.
all our 2 viewers who would make it this far.
See, I'm going to give the peace sign to even it out.
Um, Peace.
Peace. But yeah, no,
Music
like
is my life. Sorry, I just.
I'm glad you're being deliberately cringy there, because fucking hell.
No, it's chopped up.
Say that again.
It's chopped up. from Texas Chainsaw 2.
Oh yeah, of course it fucking is. I'm
Oh,
big
Jesus
dumb,
Christ.
big dumb,
You're
big
meant to
dumb.
be the horror movie guy.
Yeah, I know. But mate, it's fucking hot. My brain's not going very well. Okay, but yeah, no. I love Side B of this. The whole thing is really great, and I think it just immediately sets that trend going where it's like this band clearly weren't like happy with just resting on their creative laurels. They wanted to keep pushing forward and bettering what they were doing.
Also, I think the guitar coupling is perfect because you've got obviously Chuck Schuldiner because both the guitarists do solos. You've got Chuck Schuldiner. His solos are way more like thought out, melodic, almost in a sense. Then obviously you've got the other dude who I've forgotten his name for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Rick Ross. That's it. Rick Ross. He's just a whammy wanker. So.
I love a bit of whammy abuse,
yeah,
man.
So do I. It's not Kerry
fan.
King style whammy wanking. It's like actually sick sounding whammy wanking.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, where he does a lot of flutters and he's like fucking he'll do hammer-ons and pull-offs whilst going like that shit. That sounds so sick.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And then afterwards Chuck comes in with his solos, which are more like based around scales and stuff like that, and moving.
Theory wanker.
Theory wanker, yes. Something that I am very much not.
Yeah, no, we're way too dumb on this podcast, but fuck it, it's fine. But yeah, no. What a good album. It's not the first time. I'm not the last time I'm going to be saying that whatsoever.
No, so all of them are good albums.
I was saying to you before the start, this was I think just as hard as the Black Dahlia.
As tough as Black Dahlia. I didn't find that as tough.
I did.
I know what I will find tough though.
Yeah, they're all tough.
No, I know what band I will find tough in the future. That's for sure.
Yes, we all know. There's no.
But ladies and gentlemen, there would have been an episode discography ranking for them already. It's just that they are working on an album, so I'm kind of waiting for that to come out.
Absolutely. But all right, I think we can now move on to the next one.
Dude,
is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just keep looking at myself and seeing that like literally everything's decked in cattle merch, and yeah, I'm a big fan, but maybe this is a bit excessive.
Man, fuck that. Embrace your inner fanboy. You know, be a fucking nerd. There's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? Like let it shine through. But yeah, we'll move on to the next album, which you said this was the first time you'd heard it, right?
Yeah, in full. The next album is Spiritual Healing.
1990.
Yeah, the only song I remember in lockdown when I was getting into death metal the first time, so it's been about a year now.
Yeah,
I would usually just listen to songs like whatever YouTube would give to me from what I was listening to, and I only heard the song "Spiritual Healing" off of this album, which I thought was good, but however I hadn't heard anything else on it. And
did you only think it was good? Because I love the title track.
I don't think at that point I was like listening properly because I'd only heard it a few times, and also I was doing work at the same time, so I wasn't.
All the prayers in the world couldn't save you now. Yeah. A taker of life is what you are. So good, mate. It's so good. I put this
album on, and immediately. I mean, which one is it? The song "Altering the Future." When the song pauses, "Altering the Future." That fucking part was so sick. I love that part. So absolutely. I'm glad I've heard it now because man, this album is good. An evolution again. They haven't stuck with the same thing. This is like prog is way more. Album cover, it's super bright. Also, some hidden things in there. When I first saw it,
I fucking love the album cover too.
I fucking love it as well. I mean, sure, the guy looks a little bit goofy on the front, but yeah.
It's dark. I think it is meant to be dark funny.
Humor. Yeah, and then there's like definitely. One hidden thing, which I always thought the woman in the back was holding a knife, but it turns out that's a book.
It's a Bible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Bible. She's holding a Bible, but the way that it's placed. Some people have agreed that it looks like she's holding a knife. I don't know whether that was intentional or not, but if it was,
I wouldn't be surprised because there's a lot of details in this. Like I've always enjoyed the like the main preacher at the front who's touching the dude in the wheelchair. I assume he's in the wheelchair. He's got. I love like the little the dollar bill like tucked in his coat pocket up front, like and like just how fucking deranged they all look.
Yeah, whenever I see the fucking preacher, I know it makes me immediately think of A Waste of Life by Gruesome, because obviously Gruesome's a tribute band to Death by Matt Harvey, but without only covering Death songs, which I think is pretty rad. At least there's still Death songs coming out technically when there are none to be able to come out. And if there's anyone who's going to do it, it's Matt Harvey.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, that song is literally about preachers and stuff. I mean, that whole album is way more like they were trying to go for spiritual healing, because the first one, Savage Land, was like they were really going for leprosy sound. This one was way more spiritual healing sound. And dude, yeah, fucking the lyrics to A Waste of Life. As soon as I see the preacher on spiritual healing, I immediately think of "You Truly Make Me Sick." Just that one lyric.
Well, clearly,
and then offers the lyric. I think it's "My only reason to live is to watch you die."
Lovely, beautiful. Yeah. It's a love song.
Because he fucking hates preachers, guys. Do you get it? Angels are fucking losers.
Wonderful, but I mean, you know, again, classic metal territory. But I feel as though, if we're talking about lyrics and vocals, I've got to say, I think this is my favourite Chuck vocal performance.
Oh, for sure.
Mate, the vocals on this fucking album, like if you compare this, so this is 1990, right? Like you compare this to like the vast majority of death metal vocal performances, like extreme metal vocal performances, mate, it's so clear. It's crystal clear.
Like,
you can make out exactly what he's saying. Like, to such an insane degree for the time.
Altering the future, when the music pauses and he just shouts "altering the future," and that's when I really was like, dude, these vocals, because they're obviously, you can hear how clear he is because there's nothing else around it, and your center of attention is on his vocals, and everything's pronounced so well, but with such aggression. It's just like
it's got to be like one of the best like death metal vocal performances of that time.
And also, at this point, he's playing some riffs that aren't easy to do vocals over as well. Like,
I see somehow, like, because I get into the music, like sometimes I fucking forget that this guy was like, because I mean that's fucking crazy. I mean, anyone that's ever tried to play music in any regard will tell you that playing an instrument and singing, doing vocals at the same time is mental. And I mean, obviously with Chuck, you are looking at a prodigy guitar player, and so for him to sort of come out with these really like very complicated riffs and like lead parts and solos, and
another
still
one
be
that I
melting
think of is Revocation. Because those riffs are insane, and Dave Davidson sings whilst doing those riffs. It's wow.
Yeah, no,
I have no idea.
Yeah, it is mental, and I mean, I'm almost certain that he's massively inspired by Schuldiner, but yeah, he
is.
I did want to talk about some of the lyrics here, because I actually like was listening like really up close to the lyrical content, which, you know, usually with a death metal record, like most of the time I'm not doing, like mainly because, you know, I can't hear the words particularly well, but like again, that maturity once again goes up. Like Living Monstrosity is about a crack baby, a baby being born addicted to drugs. I think the spiritual healing is obviously about like corrupt preachers and corrupt religion. You've got like Altering the Future. Is it Altering the Future? I think it's Altering the Future. Is about
I think, is that the song where he's on about abortion and stuff?
Yeah. He's talking about like how death. I really like it because it's sort of a thing about how death is a part of life. So he's talking about abortion, but he's also talking about like capital punishment. He's kind of like it's kind of a comment on people being against these things, but it's sort of like, well, like death is a part of life and people must die. Like, why would you? That's how I read it anyway. But it's as opposed to it being like gore lyrics, he's actually like getting philosophical about like grim stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's actually sort of you're getting a bit of a point of view of what he's talking about. But there's man, what's the other? There's another one here. Is it genetic reconstruction? Like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's one which is about like where he's imagining like human beings becoming like fused with technology as time goes on, and it like kind of changing the human race. It's sort of like quite and like sort of becoming cyborgs, which for me, like I'm a fucking mark for anything with that kind of lyric, right? Like sci-fi horror type shit, like cybernetic human beings, like fucking people mutilating themselves. I love all that stuff. Like so, I love that. But yeah, the vocals and lyrics on this album are fucking fantastic. Like I've got to say, like riff wise, I actually think I prefer Leprosy, but this is an absolute standout like vocal performance. I think on this record, it is fucking ridiculous. Not to say that
like I
riffs
said,
don't
I've
riff.
never heard this album, and I was blown away. This was actually, you know, I said the fucking quality sound of my phone is crazy on my new one.
Yeah.
This was the fucking first album that I listened to on this phone in the shower, and I was like blown away at how good I could hear everything. Because usually when doing discography rankings, I don't listen to that music whilst I'm in the shower because it's fucking hard to hear because there's water and bullshit.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I was like, you know what, I'll fucking try it. Because that alarm made me shit my pants. So maybe this would work. And it was fucking clear.
Well, it's what an album to test your fucking phone speakers with. It is wonderful. Like you know, like I said, I think I do prefer just like in terms of riffs. I think I prefer Leprosy, but like holy fuck, man, I like this. This is just an unbelievable vocal performance from Chuck on this. Like it's. I'd go as far as say, I think this might be one of my favorite vocal performances on any old school death metal record. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't know if it's just like his technique improved or he got to a certain point, or if it's like how the vocals were produced too. But it just sounds so good, and I can like I'm always focused on the lyrics in this record. And how many death metal albums can you honestly say that about? You know, like. Where the lyrics have your attention all the time. Like generally speaking, that it really isn't the case with death metal, is it? So it's definitely not just unique in their catalog for that,
fucking, but monotonous, guttural half the time.
Well, yeah, you know, most of the time in death metal, it serves as like an accompaniment to the rest of the musical like landscape. Whereas in this, it's like. It really pops out, and like, I'm always like I'm actually focused on the narrative in this, which is always nice. It's what a fucking record. I mean, in terms of like individual songs, I like that fucking title track, mate. Fucking out, like I think that is a
good. 7.5 minutes of pure gold.
Yeah, no, legit. Like that song does not feel that long when you're listening to it at all. Like because it's just so well crafted. Like I love the vocal refrains on it. Like I said, the one, you know, like what I just fucking said it. You know, a taker of life. Oh yeah, all the prayers in the world couldn't save you now. A taker of life is what you are. Like it's just badass, man. It's fucking fantastic. Yeah, I love that track. Wait a minute, I'm getting Spotify back up on my phone. God help me. Oh, wrong password. Go fuck yourself. Professionalism at its highest, ladies and gentlemen.
I've moved around so much in this fucking episode.
Yeah, defensive personalities is great. Killing Spree is a brilliant way to close the album as well.
Outro.
Yeah, it's fucking brilliant. Excellent stuff. Honestly, the whole album is great. I can't say there's any low points for me. But yeah, for me, I think my favorite track is the title track. I think that is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite death songs.
I haven't had much time with the album. I've only listened to it twice in my life.
I haven't heard it in quite a long time, and I don't think when I did hear it before, I gave it the right level of concentration, you know. So
for me, my favorite track would be Altering the Future, but that's just because that was the one that really gripped me. Just because of that one part.
Yeah, no, I think I need to spend some more time with this one too, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah.
what a fucking good one!
Just
Like legitimately,
you'll
what?
see what I think about it.
No, absolutely, absolutely, very very good record. Now, the next year, they came out with
An absolute
Human.
classic.
Um,
Everyone
so
knows
this,
this.
so again, we've talked thus far about how this band has been constantly improving on themselves, and this, I think, this does represent probably the biggest jump for them from record to record.
Yeah.
So much so that like this is like, I mean, like quite doing like these albums back to back, and then like that, and when you move from Spiritual Healing to this, I mean, it's fucking bonkers. Like it's just like holy fucking shit. Like that prog element that's been sitting there since Leprosy.
Yeah,
Now, like
especially on the
just
end of this album. It's so the Cosmic Sea and Vacant Planets are far
oh,
too
we'll get
good.
to it. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Oh my god, that fucking track. We'll get to it. But yeah,
You
this
actually,
this
oh
record
god,
is
you would kill
so
me then.
is such a was such a gigantic leap forward for extreme metal at large. I think that even to this day, musicians
Oh, yeah.
even
Also, the lyrics had somehow matured even more to the point of like where it wasn't like "fuck you," it was like these are issues.
well, that's the thing. Like, whereas obviously we've up to this point we've had a
Spiritual Healing
mature.
was a lot more like maturity because it wasn't horror movie stuff, but it was kind of like "we hate you people" kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where,
Whereas
but
now,
now
whereas
it's like
now
here are some issues in this
with
record.
this one, like it becomes like straight up philosophical.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, from the first track, Flattening of Emotions. First of all, the drum
yeah,
intro, excellent. Um, but from what I don't actually know what the song is about, but from what I've heard, I'm pretty sure it's either like people's emotions being ridded of for the use of war or something. I
yeah,
might be wrong.
yeah. I think it just has quite a lot. I sort of took it as being about repression, about
Mm,
people like sort of like keeping themselves within themselves and kind of like the damage that does. But again, like this isn't the same kind of lyrical angle that was on the debut whatsoever. Like we're talking about some really esoteric
yeah,
shit on this record.
there's Suicide Machine, which is obviously there's Pull the Plug, but this is like way different because what's the lyric? Um, fuck, what's the one about with those with power? Ah, fuck. When it comes to living, no, that's it. When it comes to living, no one seems to care. But when it comes to wanting out, those with power will be there. That lyric.
Yeah,
Suicide
exactly.
Machine.
Which again, like war and the horrors of war isn't this isn't a fucking new topic for metal by any stretch, but like for it to talk about like the psychological impact and kind of the like people seizing power and using it and like using people as pawns in
I
such
know
a
that we're just like going through that at this point. I'm going through the songs and saying how it's matured, but the next song, "Together as One," it's quite obvious what it is. It's
yeah.
I think it's like Siamese twins kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I
They will
can't
live and
say
they
that
will
I've
die
listened to
together as
the
one.
lyrics quite as intensely as I did on Spiritual Healing with this, so
Mm.
I would
It's
be
just that I've listened to this album so much, especially the first half, that I know that because there's like one part where he says like all the things that they have to do together, and then obviously the main one is they will live and they will die together as one. So it's
mm.
definitely and a
But again,
big
I'd like
one,
maybe you could take that as being like a
yeah,
like because to me it kind of feels as though
maybe yeah,
like you could take that as being like a conjoining of souls or something because
yeah. I see what you mean.
there's a lot of that
Maybe
thematically in
not
this
taking it in the
album.
literal sense and more of a mental being kind of sense. I see what you mean.
Yeah,
This
but
is the
that's what I
thing.
mean. Like
The death lyrics became philosophical. It's like there's actual like thought. Like everyone's getting a different idea of what these
you can
songs are about.
interpret this.
Yeah.
Like you can't like there isn't much interpretation that can be done with fucking zombie horse.
No.
but now like you can legitimately kind of take a few different ideas away from these because it's written in a far
And
more
then obviously there's
interesting way.
the big single of this track, lack of comprehension. Which when it starts, you think, oh, Death of God's soft, because it's the fucking
Yeah.
they're like that. It always makes me think elevator music. The intro to fucking.
Yeah.
Boom,
I know what you mean. It's kind of got that like smooth jazz kind of leaning thing, isn't it? But
And
that's
then
what
all
I
of a
mean. Like
sudden it
that.
comes in bulldozer.
Well, yeah, like that sort of jazzy prog influence
Yeah.
is just like is all over this record, and I mean, like. I'd go so far. Like, I think this has to be like at least one of the first like progressive death metal albums. Like
Like
it
I
has
said,
to be.
I find it interesting that they created something. Well, Chuck created something, didn't like it, wanted to break the mold, so he created something new, just as Carcass did.
Yeah, exactly. You know, same as fucking Bathory as well. You know, there's a whole
I don't know if Napalm did that. No, sort of, no.
kind of
But they didn't
that
really create anything new, did they? They kind of just.
well, I mean,
They
obviously
created they created the grindcore thing, but after
they
that they didn't
created
go after
grind, but then
They
obviously they
didn't really
moved
go
into
after
more death
creating
metal territory. But at the
death
same
metal.
time, I think they're
However,
massive
though,
in death.
now,
But yet
it's
now,
unique as fuck.
they're sort of mixing like grind with some like math elements, some like post punk stuff. Like
What's the song off the latest album, Belly Full of Salt and Spleen? That's not even
yeah,
that's barely metal at this point.
I
That
mean,
song's
it's extremely
great, though.
Swans influenced. I don't know how much Swans you've
No.
listened to, but
I've
it's
tried to listen to Swans. It's just I do not know where to start.
no, I can't say I blame you. It took me a while, but I'll tell you what, off the air, off podcast, I will definitely I'll give you some pointers of where to best start with Swans. Like when I reckon there'll come a point where you're ready to get into Swans because Swans are serious business. But yeah, speaking of taking in like other influences, that yeah, the prog elements on this are phenomenal, and I think
it's because they got Sean Reinhardt, as we were discussing before we start recording, on drums, and that guy's just like jazz, like influenced, and it's just crazy the sort of shit that he comes up with throughout the whole track, every single track and stuff like that. So yeah.
I mean, who else in metal was drumming like this?
Yeah,
who else?
Steve DiGiorgio. Yeah, he was on this album because it has the fretless bass sound and Suicide Machine that George absolutely fucking hates.
Does he?
Yeah, is it Suicide Machine? There's one like fretless bass part that he hates inside of one of the songs on here. It's
damn.
like, oh, dude, I think it is. Suicide Machine has one of the most prominent fretless bass parts in it, right?
I mean, the really prominent fretless bass comes into play in the next album a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's obvious.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah,
no, but there's one fretless bass part on this album that he hates. I'm pretty sure it's the fretless bass part on Suicide Machine.
Oh, that makes me sad. The bass
and
playing.
Also, that motherfucker is gonna shout at us for having wrong opinions. Because when it comes to death, mate, he doesn't shut the fuck up. He tells you that you're wrong. So you know, it's only fair. It's only fair that I shit on his opinion.
Well, you know, I like people with strong opinions as when it comes to music. That's why I've started a podcast about having opinions on music. But yeah, I'd like, for me, it's kind of hard for me to pick out like that much in the way of individual songs, because this really works as like a piece more than any of the ones up to that point. But if I had to pick one thing, is it the end part of like, is it Cosmic Sea or is it Vacant
Honestly,
Dreams?
When it comes to the last two tracks, I phase out. I'm not going to lie.
No. I appreciate that level of honesty. But for me, I think it's the last part of Cosmic Sea, and I'm very, very, very picky with like progressiveness in my metal. I do like it, but I'm very picky. But there's that part where it's almost like ambient free jazz or something. It just turns into like a wall of sound and just like like ambience and like instruments fading in and out. And to me, it just sounds so fucking cool. And really, if you take into account like where they were coming from as a band, like the scene they'd come from, like for me, it's just utterly daring. Like for a band of that to come from death metal to go and start making stuff like that to me is just how like you've got to have balls the side because who the fuck else who had done that up to that point? Fucking next to nobody,
with
right?
metal. Well, I'll let you finish your point.
Yeah, so like artistically speaking, I do think, and you know, even if you take away like the context of the time, like I think that some of the passages on this album are still fucking quite transcendent. Like I listen to it and it does that thing where it takes me away. I feel like I'm floating in space. I think this is it's definitely the biggest jump from record to record creatively for them. I think this is like a bit of a genius album. Like, and I you know, that only really is exemplified by how fucking influential on death metal this has been. You know, like would progressive death metal and tech death exist in the same way if it weren't for this album? I mean, maybe not, but it's certainly been one of the pivotal records.
That's altering the future. They have altered the future.
Hey!
One little thing changes it all.
Hey!
Karma is like a real thing. But what was I saying? Yeah. From your point of it's daring from what scene they came from, it brought up a point for me. I mean, it's not specifically related to death, but it's interesting how in metal it always seems to be people inspired by what they hate the most. Because the Bay Area thrashers, they were inspired to make thrash because they fucking hated the glam metal people and shit like that.
Yeah.
So they were like, let's do something extreme where it's completely against that. And I remember watching, I think it was the Banger TV, the extreme metal episode that Sam Dunn did.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Where and there's one part where he spoke to Fenriz, and it was on how black metal was formed, the second wave. And Fenriz was like, "Oh yeah, I heard what Death was doing, and by this point it was all just this bullshit of like noodling around and all that. Whereas what we wanted to do is."
I literally remember exactly what he says. He's like, it's like, he said, and I heard what Chuck Schuldiner was doing, and I was like, oh man, this fucking sucks. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what he said. That's what he says.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like
it's interesting
you know,
to see that metal usually you're inspired by what you hate, by what you hate, and that's just proven because we're all just opinionated assholes and we're always fighting each other for some reason.
Well, yeah, but like that kind of that thing can fuel like great creativity. You know, you see something and you kind of think like, oh, for fuck's sake, like I've had enough of it. Like I think the current the resurgence in like raw death metal was because I think people were getting fucking bored of how overproduced and sterile metal had become.
Yeah, lots of them say the big tech death thing pissed them off because you lost the brutality and technicality, which fair enough.
I mean, obviously there are bands that can be brutal as fuck while being technical, but yeah, no, for sure, people wanted it to become Niall,
fucking Cryptopsy.
Oh fuck! I nut when just thinking about Cryptopsy, but yeah, it is always interesting how like you know things kind of start as a reaction to something. People want to
going in alphabetical order, right? It's starting with A, and then the N comes before the C.
We'll let you have it. We'll let you have it. You can exist in your own dream world with your own alphabet. It's fine. We'll let you have it. But that's what I mean. Like, and in much in that same regard,
pistachios
you know,
at empty cans.
Yeah. But I think the Carcass comparison is pretty like valid because again, it's like they started, you know, like they created like gore grind and it's like horrible, like deliberately horrible sounding music, and they kind of went, oh, we're fucking bored of that. We're gonna like play like this, but with Iron Maiden influence.
We're gonna create an entirely new genre.
And again,
just
like
a subgenre.
Like Chuck was kind of like, oh, we kind of made this thing, and you know, it's all very straightforward and the same. So and I really like proggy stuff, and I like classic heavy metal. So
On
I want to
the
bring,
later albums, his fucking power metal influence.
yeah, well, yeah, no, the devil again. We'll
That
get to
was
that.
a. I wish I didn't do that. Um,
But we
Thank God my hand wasn't in frame.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But yes, very. I mean,
No, I
not just a very good album, but like a fucking like an absolute
influential
milestone
album.
in metal in general. Like it's kind of like I usually when we do these, I like to focus more on individual opinion than like the influence of something. But I think if you're talking about human, like you can't
Yeah.
have the conversation about the album without talking about the influence. It's impossible. Like it's so important, and it's so fucking good. I think it is like musically, it's still takes me away. I've listened to it on headphones and I go to space, and I love anything that does that.
Yeah,
But
it's
now
one
I
of
want to
those
get
where
onto an
when you're
album
walking to
which,
Tesco's, instead of going to Tesco's, you go to space, as
yeah,
you say.
yeah,
Say it all
exactly.
the
You know
time.
what I mean? I'm not walking down the high
Tesco
street.
Express, actually.
I'm walking on the moon. Um, but yeah, now we get on to the next record, which is individual thought patterns, which I've got to say, I think in terms
Fuck
of
that up.
latter day death, like sort of like, the set, what we call like the proggy half of their, I really don't see this album talked about as much as the rest of them. Why do you think that is?
I would not be able to tell you, but I know that a lot of people do not talk about this album at all, even though it's got
No.
Gene Hoglan on it, which is crazy because Gene
Yep.
Hoglan's probably the most popular metal drummer in my opinion. I think.
I
Come
would.
on, the guy's known by
He's
the
kind
Atomic
of
Clock.
he's one of those guys who always gets put on like best metal drummer
He's
list
played.
for
Yeah.
extremely good reason.
Yeah.
But because
Yes.
the guy is just a fucking machine.
I
But
mean, they
yeah,
kind of made their own supergroup at this point, didn't they? Because they also had Steve DiGiorgio on bass, along with the Atomic Clock and Chuck Schuldiner, and whoever the
yeah,
other guitarist was. I don't
yeah.
know.
No, stellar fucking lineup.
James, was it James Murphy at this point?
I'm
On
not I'm
guitar?
not I'm not 100% sure on the different lineup
Because I know
incarnations
he
because they
played
did
at
have a
some
lot of
point as
member
Death.
changes.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
had so many. Um,
but
but yeah,
but
this
yeah,
this is the fretless bass domain.
yeah. So I
Wow.
do find it interesting that more people don't talk about this album because, and I'm glad you brought this up. The thing about this album, and I've said before, I love metal records with prominent bass
With
production and good
bass.
bass playing. And
And this
fucking hell,
you said to me is Jack's favorite or one of his favorites by Death, because Jack requested this. I thought I might as well say it. One of his favorites, didn't you? By Death. I thought
yeah,
it,
this is.
it is his
I know he
favorites.
fucking
Um,
massively raised this album because
because uh,
yeah,
yeah,
being a bass
he's a
player
fretless bass
himself.
player. He loves the fretless bass. Yeah, and he owns a fretless bass, so obviously he likes the sound of fretless bass. I mean, it's an odd sound to have in death metal, but they managed to make it work. I mean, obviously the main part that I remember it from
Mm.
is on the from is on the outro of the Philosopher. That
Yeah,
fucking
yeah. But it's all over this record, and I think
it
it's a
is.
fucking phenomenal performance from
It
whoever played
is.
the bass. I'm not
Also,
good with
just
the.
like, mm,
Go on, no, go on,
it's
you
Steve
go.
DiGiorgio. It's Steve
Yeah, that's right.
DiGiorgio.
Yeah,
That's what you know about. Yeah.
but,
How the fuck could you forget about Steve DiGiorgio? But no,
because
uh,
I'm me, mate. I'm terrible
I
with
think
everyone's name.
I think though this has like some interesting riffs. Like "Trapped in the Corner" is a popular one for this album, and that one starts
Yeah,
out with, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd definitely say
I'm gonna
so.
be honest. I only listened to this album once because my brain was preoccupied with other things, and I only actually managed to listen to this album once. It's the first time I've listened to this album, so I do not remember it that well. But I can tell
What
you
was
that
your
I did
first
fucking
impression of
enjoy
it,
it.
though?
It was actually fucking like pretty decent. But it's like it's
Yeah.
kind of hard with Death, isn't it? Because they're pretty consistent.
Well,
Well, consistent as in everything's good, but nothing's the same.
yeah, exactly. Like it is really fascinating to me how like because I
Because
think Human did.
Black Dahlia was Black Dahlia was difficult because it was consistent. Because most of their stuff like very regimented. I mean, obviously it evolved over time,
Yeah,
but it always follows like a formula that is tried and true and works very well for them. Whereas Death, they had so much experimentation and they always seemed to get it right. It's just crazy.
yeah. I don't understand how they fucking wrote all these albums within such a short span from one another. Like I know. I think this was 3 years from the previous, but even then, like I
The
think this is.
songs that the
No.
songs that jumped out to me would be in Human Form. Obviously Trapped in the
Mm,
Corner because I'd heard that one a few times from watching live sets. Um, Nothing is Everything is one that I remember the chorus to because it's nothing is everything and everything is nothing. Um,
yeah. No,
what else is it?
it's definitely
Destiny is one that I
one of the
remembered,
refrains that sticks in their head, isn't it?
and then obviously the outro track just because I've heard it so many times. The Philosopher.
Yeah,
That one I know very well.
I'd say if I yeah the ones that always stick out to me. Oh, I think the philosopher's probably my favorite track on this personally, but
Yeah, also
um
it's just like that intro tapping riff is so good.
yeah, God, it's like crack.
And then after it's just do you feel what I feel?
Oh yeah. No, it's fucking fantastic. But it's interesting because I
And
almost
also
feel
by
as
this
though
point it
whereas
made me realize how often Chuck says lies.
he does say lies. Yeah. Now that you've said that,
There's
I'm
a
going to hear
YouTube
that
video, there's a
every
YouTube
fucking.
video of compilation. There is a compilation of every single time he screams the word lies. And it's like it averages about like 6 times on each album. It's so often.
we
Lies.
we all have our bit. We all have our ticks and our little things we all
Yeah,
come back to.
we
But
all have our things that we like to say.
yeah,
It's fine.
absolutely.
It
But
worked. It became your thing.
it's quite interesting to me because whereas like Human to me pretty solidly is like progressive. I almost think of this as being more techy. Like whereas like there's kind of
Yeah,
like
I see what you
that
mean.
kind of that jazzy
Absolutely.
atmosphere on Human. With this, it's more about like the constantly shifting parts and like yeah, the way that the bass just. I know I keep going on about the bass guitar, but if you've heard this album, you know why. Like it's never following the leads, and no, I think it does for certain riffs, but there's so many times when the bass does not play the obvious thing, and it just adds this such a fucking cool element. I mean, I love fretless bass in death metal. I'd imagine a lot of those bands that use it are inspired by this, at least to some degree. I mean, Beyond
Mm.
Creation is one, Obscura is another one. Like I just love it. Like I love the sound. That's the sound that it makes. I just like prominent bass guitar in death metal essentially. But Out of Touch is
Well, I
another
mean,
really good
it
one.
needs the
It,
chunk.
yeah, it needs the chunk, but at the same time, like it kind of feels spidery to me. It kind of feels like something
Mm.
crawling all over the track. It kind of gives it another
Especially with
kind of
fretless bass because it's kind of free to do like
yeah,
note
exactly.
wise.
It's such a fucking
I like
cool
how that's
sound, and
always my interpretation of fretless bass, man. Just like because that's always whenever I see someone play fretless bass, they're like using as much as the neck as they can to show that they have memorized where the notes are.
yeah, I think that's a matter of the necessity. I think you kind of fucking have to, don't you? But
And also because you
yeah.
get that sound whenever you go
Oh,
across it.
mate, you just you saying that and me remembering that noise made me go. It's like the best noise in the world. Wow, 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 wow.
Getting that feeling.
It's so cool. But yeah, there's a lot of like the rhythm is like constantly like shifting. Like the time signatures
Shifting
will
around, yeah.
change subtly and just on the verses in between like bars. Like it just like so there's this constant like kind of like shifting, morphing kind of a thing going on more rhythmically. Whereas I think of Human as maybe being a bit more like more about like sort of off kilter phrasing and like chord progressions and things like that. This is more rhythmic. I feel as though this album, which I love that. I think this album is so underrated. It fucking hurts me. I don't understand why like this never gets talked about in like
Yeah.
the other ones. Like it's literally it's the least talked about death record. I think it has to be. Like I don't hear like people always talk about like the first three. In terms of like old school death, and then once you get into like the more
And then
proggy
afterwards,
territory
like,
of the
I
later
think
stuff,
it's because what, they have 7 albums, right? So
yeah,
it's like
7.
either you're talking old school death, you mean Scream Bloody Gore, um,
Leprosy
Leprosy,
and
Spiritual
spiritual
Healing,
healing.
and Human, obviously. But that kind of ties into later death. But I
Yeah,
guess because like fucking individual thought patterns is almost the middle child. It's kind of like it's left out.
mate, yeah, which to me is
Because
fucking
then
criminal
after
because
that, you go on to the next albums. I mean, if we were to say which one the middle child would be, it would actually be Human. It's just that Human was so fucking influential that it skipped an individual thought patterns and
I'd
everything.
say to be honest, I think of Human as being one of the sort of the second half. That's how I split
Yeah,
it
no,
in two. Is
that's what I meant. But it's
yeah,
like
the
if
first
you
three,
tried
and
to,
then
because when I meant middle child, I meant like it's generally the middle album. Obviously, Human would be the middle album.
yeah, right,
But
yeah,
if you split it at fucking individual thought patterns for it to be even, then Human would be counted in there. But yes, you would remove individual thought patterns, put Human along with the next two, and then
yeah.
individual thought patterns. Because like I said, Human was so fucking influential. Maybe people became ignorant as to what came afterwards, and it just
Yeah, I mean,
then it became the
but
weird middle
yeah,
child.
it's super interesting because I feel as though like yeah, rhythmically, this is probably my
Or
favorite
maybe it was
album of
too
theirs.
much at the time or
Like
something.
yeah, who fucking knows? It's a mystery to me why this album doesn't get talked about more. But whereas I think they would go on to riff harder on this album, I think rhythmically this is definitely my favorite one. Like obviously you've got like Steve Giorgio and Gene Hogler. I mean that is one hell of a fucking rhythm section, and they absolutely fucking destroy it on this album. They are so good. Like I love this record. I like this has quite a special place for me. This is going to be higher than average on
Yeah,
my
I've only listened
ranking.
to it once, so I don't have the
I
good
reckon
rating for it.
you should put in some time with this because I've
Yeah,
this is one of the death albums I've listened to the most. I have a real love
I
for
mean
it
it's
just because
pretty obvious which
again
one I've listened to the most.
yeah, but it's a brilliant fucking record. I reckon the more you listen to it, the more you get out of it. Because like I
Yeah,
said, there's a lot of those rhythmic shifts, and it's like same as with anything where there's a lot of like kind of like more technical like rhythmic
sure.
stuff going on. As you start to get your head around that stuff and really like get your like sort of brain into it more, like you start to really appreciate that stuff. You know what I mean? It does take more than one listen for anybody, I think, to get into that kind of shit. But yeah, great fucking record, brilliant. I love individual hall patterns. It is well good. So on to the next one, which is 1995's Symbolic. So this was my introduction to this band. I can't remember where it was I first got told to listen to them. I mean, the
I
metal
mean they are
internet
the
is
death
always
band.
telling everyone
They
to
are the
listen to
death
death,
metal.
aren't they?
Yes,
All of the time.
they are probably the
So
best place to start for death metal.
yeah,
Even though
they are.
like the later stuff is barely straight death, but I guess
No,
Cannibal is the main one that people will tell you to listen to. But
yeah, no, absolutely. And then people say if you want to get a bit more cerebral with it, sort of look at and this one. Would you say this one is their most like revered record? I mean, it's got to be either this or Human. I think. Like, which one? Like, because it's sort of people. I'd say Human really, because Human I think was such a huge step forward for them,
yeah, I
and
think
every like
Human
no
is
one.
like the most influential and like favorite by people, but Symbolic is
Yeah,
a close one because
yeah,
I do hear a lot of people talk about it, and I mean the power metal influence was big on here. What was his what was the favorite band that Chuck had at the time that he kind of embraced on this album? Fuck.
I'm not a big
Tower.
power metal guy.
Tower. I am not a big power metal guy as well.
No.
Fucking Tower. Jesus. Oh fuck.
Oh
Not Jesus
fuck.
Tower. Watchtower? No.
Yeah. No, I think it is Watchtower. I know of them.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't. I've never listened to them. I only really know the word tower was in there. The only
Yeah.
power metal band I'm really well versed with is Dragon Force because
Guitar
Guitar
Hero.
Hero. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone. Yeah, me too, mate. I mean, I've had little
funny
dips.
song with
I
a
like.
lot of notes.
Well, I've had some dips into power metal. I like. There's a German band called Rage. I really like. There's like sort of a lot of stuff. I guess like fucking Children of Bodom is influenced by that stuff. Ensiferum, is that Ensiferum? I like that
listened
sort
to
of
a track
folk
and I
metal.
couldn't get into Inferum.
It's cheesy as all fuck, but it's great fun.
Yeah.
I sort of. I love all that. I love like the Scandinavian kind of take on like folky, big fuck off like melodies like that. But yeah,
Anyway, Symbolic.
Yeah, like the guitar leads on this
Yeah.
definitely become a lot more epic, don't they? Like that's kind of the
Also,
thing.
there's kind of like more of the sections from lack of comprehension here. Is it 1000 Eyes or Sacred Serenity, which starts out with like the more like clean guitar where it's like boom, boom,
Yeah, the sort of like the ambient thing again. Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of that in. Oh fuck my brain.
And as well, this is like where like the guitar parts like had room to breathe to sound more epic and had Chuck be able to belt out those lines. The main one to me is Zero Tolerance, where it's like
yes,
and then there's the fucking there will be zero tolerance. This is not a game.
Oh mate, so fucking good.
It's so good.
The one I always think of in terms of like the clean guitar parts, I mean, I think is the one most people think of. I think it's the big one off the album is Crystal Mountain.
Crystal Mountain. Yes. At the
yeah,
end,
like
the
that.
fucking acoustic guitar solo. Oh, that part. Yeah.
Yeah, like
dude,
yeah, they
I
kind
remember
of.
when I first tried to learn that riff on guitar, man. Not like the boom, that's fine. But then obviously he does that. That thing.
Yeah.
It's not difficult. It follows a scale. It's just that Chuck really likes doing this one thing where he like moves on the first string, and then obviously does the first note of the next string, comes back up, because your fingers. It's gonna be really hard to explain. I'm probably wasting my time here, but
no, I'm listening.
But like that. Those are the three notes, right, on your first string, and after you go underneath with this finger, so and then it would be the same shape on the next fucking string, but instead of moving on to the next string, it goes and then he'd play those notes backwards, but he wouldn't go back to that first note on the top string. He'd finish it at this finger, go back, and then finish it on this finger, do this note, do this fucking finger on the top note, and then come back, and then finally finish the next line, then move on to the next line, do the same thing. And it's fucked because it's I found that so difficult. I mean, I can play that fucking like solo part like butter now because I practiced that for ages. I remember I couldn't get my head around having to go back up and not finishing the whole run all the time.
Yeah, like you're kind of going against your own instinct, aren't you? Like,
yeah, because I'm used to going through scales where you go like straight through.
Yeah, right.
Every single one of Chuck's solos, he does and he goes up and down and up and down without ever finishing a line until he's copied the line down from the top.
Yeah, so he's come back full circle on the phrase, kind of thing.
It's real fucking weird. And then obviously like the riff, that riff is just really fun.
Man, this whole album, to me, is
the whole
like
album's fun. It's epic,
dude. To me, it's just like, do you like riffs? Yes. Do you like riffs? Would you like fucking at least 5 absolute also, 10 out of 10 riffs?
It's like, no secret. But wait, hold on. Is it on this album? Oh no, I think it's on the. Oh, I miss my chance. There's
Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
no, there's. All right, I'll still use it. I was about to say there's no secret that Chuck loved cats. But on
He did.
Human, there's a song called Secret Face. There's no secret face that Chuck loved cats, mate. I'm smashing it with using the song title.
Sweet
um,
shots. That is some sharp wit.
Zing! And
Zing! Off of the
yeah, no.
dome.
So there's one song on here which I think is it. Oh fuck! It's either I remember someone commented on a YouTube fucking video that the song was about like how animals live life without fear of dying and they just go for it, and the way
Yeah.
that they probably look at us for like trying to live our lives immediately because we're fearing death. I think that was what it was.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting take on like viewing human life through what an animal would see. Like, when he
Yeah.
means an animal, he means like a pet. Like our fucking pet cat could be thinking this. It's
Yeah.
either empty words. No, I think it might be without judgment. I think it might be without judgment. That's about that. But I think that's an interesting like song idea.
That's definitely a very interesting perspective. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like trying to think about, because I think anybody who's kind of owned a pet has kind of wondered like, what like you look at me, it's like, what do you think of me as? Do you think of me as like a parent? Do you think of me as like a brother? Do you think of me as just a fucking like some weird skin puppet who gives you food? Like, what am I to you? Like, it's just
weird. So it depends on different animals, right? Because I mean, I know no one has a fucking pet elephant, at least not many people do. But elephants think that we're cute. They think that we need help and that we need cuddles. And
yeah, I remember reading that.
So
they literally think we're cute.
Yeah, their brain does actually think that we're cute, which is weird. So to them, we're the pet. But it's like a cat. We usually find that cute, and it's like we see them as these things that need help and being guided. And I guess that would make sense because, especially if your cat likes you, it mummies you, right? To me, I'm pretty sure my cats just see me as a brother. At least I know the Matty does. He just sees me as a brother. Whereas the other one, the white one, I never actually call her by name because I can't be asked. It's just the white one. She's more motherly towards us. She's always cleaning us and stuff. So it's interesting in the way of like how Chuck, this man who years ago was writing about fucking raping zombie whores, is now writing about what does my favorite pet cat think about me? And he doesn't fear for death. He doesn't fear of what happens. He just kind of lives and he goes with the flow and he just does whatever he feels like. And he's not trying to achieve so much in life because he does.
He put his thinking cap on, and he
put his thinking cap on. And he looked at his cat and he went, "What the fuck are you thinking?" And his cat spoke to him back and he was like, "Yo." I know the secret.
Cheers to the song idea, bro. I owe you. I'm going to buy you a big old pack of tuna later. Bless. No,
later his cat died. No, I'm joking.
I mean, I'm not going to say that. But I mean, we end up. There's a whole bunch of.
It.
No, come on. Everyone knows what I was about to say. Fuck off. I'm not going to do it.
I don't actually. I do not know.
Leave it. But we also, again, fucking hell, this band has a really insane track record of ending their albums in like, because I know it's a cliche, it's a trope, but I fucking love the epic final track thing. And Perennial Quest is it's so good, man. I think for some reason I've kind of held back a little bit when talking about this album because I do find it interesting, but I do legitimately think this is like one of the most like, there are so many riffs on this album where I just go, yes, that is a riff.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because I mean, like, neither of us are big power metal fans. And I think this is a good way to have the power metal epicness. It's not by being overly cheesy and all that bullshit. It's like
Well, I mean, there's a lot of like
nicely
power metal
progged out
influence
death metal
stuff where
with
you get a
some
lot of
power
that,
metal
like kind of
influence.
like the big melodic.
And also, this is where Chuck started doing like, I mean, he does it a lot on the next album where it's like his vocals got somehow higher, almost as if he was a power metal vocalist at this point, but with the extra aggression of a death metal vocalist. It's
I
great.
mean, on the next album, they fucking covered Judas
That's
Priest,
what I'm
but
saying.
I mean,
Yeah,
who
he
aren't
did do
power
that.
metal technically, but are definitely a big influence on it. So, but
With
we'll
Rob
get to that.
Halford's no testicle voice.
Yeah. like the fucking an opera singer being strangled. But yeah, we'll get to that. This
I could never do.
Terrifying scream! He's a fat and half machine! Railing from the sky!
Oh dear, that's difficult. We love embarrassing
Fantastic.
ourselves on the internet.
Man, we're talking about how does our cat see us, so now we sound like fucking cats being strangled to fucking death. Jesus Christ. Right.
I don't know what that sounds like.
Man, stop accentuating stereotypes that fucking metalheads are weirdos who probably like murdering cats. We don't murder our cats.
Yeah, that's
I
what
love
we
cats.
love about Chuck. He wore cat t-shirts. No, actually, nowadays, I think it's the Chuck Schuldiner thing. Because every metalhead loves cats for some reason. And I'm pretty sure I was just fed by Chuck Schuldiner.
Well, I think it's because like cats are they're like quite solitary. They're like very independent. But it's also because like
I have come around to cats. I used to be a dog guy, but like, you know, I like cats. I still would like to have a dog, but cats are pretty rare.
see, I'm the
They're
opposite.
easy.
I was raised with cats, and I'm still a cat person. But I would love to have. I'd love to have a dog about, but
I was
I'm
raised
not sure.
with dogs.
Yeah, you
Now
know.
I cannot have dog.
No. I mean, I don't have the fucking room in my house for a dog anyway. But yeah, Symbolic is fucking brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. For a while, actually, for a little bit, this was my favorite Death album. So
Yeah,
it isn't anymore,
yeah.
but it was for a little bit. Definitely, when I first heard this, I was like, "Oh wow!"
Yeah,
That's like the best impression I could give.
Yeah, no, I still there are still parts of this record which I mean I've heard this fucking I've listened to this album an excessive amount over the years, and there are still even now there are parts on it where I just go, oh, the hairs on my arm are standing up. Oh, this is so good. Isn't metal excellent? But yeah, I fucking love Symbolic. I think it is somewhat of a masterpiece.
Foreshadowing, maybe.
We'll get to it. But yeah, well, good.
I'm
And then
really disappointed if it isn't. You've
we
lied
will
to me.
see, young Padawan. But then a full 3 years later, they come out with what would unfortunately be their final record due to Chuck's untimely passing. But they bring out The Sound of Perseverance, which,
This
as you
was the
said,
album I was introduced to death by.
yeah, no, sure. It's
Because me being a big Trivium guy, Matt Hafey would talk about death, and Sound of Perseverance. That's the name of it. I was gonna say Spirit Crusher. That's the name of the song. Sound of Perseverance is yeah, that's the first track. And speaking of Spirit Crusher, that was the song that I first heard. And as soon as I heard that that fucking
yes, it is good.
oh, that's crazy.
It's a bit
And then
hench,
Chuck's
that riff.
vocals on this he did falsetto.
Yeah,
metal
well,
vocals.
it's really
Just
interesting
crazy.
because on this it's like it's so fascinating to kind of look at the evolution of his vocal style actually from like the early days where he did just sound like feral, like you had that kind of gargly fucking yelp, and then it moved then on the spiritual healing stuff where it becomes a bit more guttural but super crisp, and then obviously we get to like this point in time. Like it actually kind of I wonder if this was an influence on Trev from the Dahlia murder, because it's in a similar kind of a register at points,
Trev cites dude from Carcass.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
Jeff.
know
Jeff.
that's the big one.
Yeah, that's
but,
the guy that he did the vocals from. But maybe.
but
'Cause,
like
yeah, I
it's
see what you
got
mean. Because Trev has those weird ass high vocals that are just
like
insane.
we're talking about a way higher sort of a register here, you know. It's and it gives this album like it took me a little while to come
But
around
also-
to be honest. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah, this was the
because
first
I
album that I heard by Death, so I was only really listening to the first part of it because it was long, and it was weird because like, there were the quiet sections, and I was used to slightly long albums. Obviously, being into Trivium, they have literal hours long sometimes. Show them.
Yep.
But
No, absolutely.
this one had like way more dynamic, and it was sometimes quieter. Yeah, sometimes quieter.
Yeah, no.
And you know, there were like, a few more experimental parts, and so it's a bit weird for me. But however, I still enjoyed it for it being my first Death album, and also that album cover is.
I do like it, but
Screaming
it's
Mountain.
I mean, yeah, it's a screaming mountain, and I get why, because it's like a mountain is there for all time, so it survives through the ages. But probably my least favorite cut. Oh, actually, it's. Do you know what? No, I take that back. As much as I like individual
No,
thought
there are
patterns,
worse Death album covers.
now the individual thought patterns covers a bit not nondescript. I know symbolic looks a bit like air, but at least it's got like
Symbolic's
a fucking big
great.
eyeball.
I like the Symbolic album cover.
album cover. I
say
like it too,
Humans
and I like
underneath
the
it.
human one. But no, I do think the individual thought patterns album cover is a bit whack, isn't it? Well, it's not even whack.
Yeah.
It's just a bit nondescript. It's like it's just sort of a skull and some
Over a planet.
Yeah.
And some
Okay.
words.
Yeah, it's a bit like nothingy. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do understand why that album cover's cool, but it's always been a bit like I just my brain's stupid, right? I see that and I just for some reason just imagine the mountain just going.
I've seen the original version of it.
This is just like for all time, just like for 2,000 years straight.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was not focusing on what you're saying. I was focused on what I was saying. And all of a sudden, I just see you go, ah! And it was like, fucking killed me. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. No, I see what you mean. You've seen the OG album cover, though, for it.
It is good, but yeah,
the OG album cover for, because I mean, it's the Screaming Mountain, but it's not in as good detail. It looks pretty bad in my opinion. The newer version is great. Excellent.
Yeah,
there's little people mining at it and shit.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a good bit of detail going on for sure. But
and also the Screaming Mountain does make me think of what Chuck sounds like on this album, like voice wise.
It's don't get me wrong, it's definitely fitting. I do really like it. It's just
there are better album covers in Death.
Yeah, there are definitely better ones, but yeah, the sort of the increasing power metal and like classic heavy metal influence on this
also
is something that I've come to love more as the years have gone by. Like as I've gotten more into like classic like metal as I've gotten to like into my like sort of mid 20s, late 20s, and yeah, man, like fucking Story to Tell. I love Story to Tell. I think that's a great fucking opener, Scavenger of Human Sorrow.
Voice of the Soul, if we're gonna
Voice of the Soul, sick.
Talk about those kind of songs, yeah.
Yeah, fucking excellent.
Scavenger is great. Bite the Pain's great. Spirit Crusher is untimely.
Yeah.
Flesh and the Power It Holds. The quiet section.
Oh yeah, mate. Flesh and the Power It Holds. I think that might be my favourite song on the album. Possibly. It's kind of hard for me to pick actually, but I love Flesh and the Power It Holds. But yeah, and then also you've got the it closes off with the cover of Painkiller by Judas Priest, which to me I'm still kind of shocked at how like faithful they are to it. Like I honestly would have liked to have
where the idea of the falsetto death growl comes in, because it's like he actually hits the notes,
Yeah,
but
I
in a
would
death
kind
growl.
of. I guess
Weird.
my only complaint about it is I guess a part of me would like to have heard them like sound more
Do
like Death
something more
doing a
like death,
cover.
yeah.
Like because it does they like it really is faithful, and I get it because I know Chuck was a fucking huge Judas Priest fan, so I understand it's like a big tribute for him, and obviously it's the only cover on any of their like that's officially on any of their records. So you know it's like kind of paying tribute to the metal god himself. I get it, but I would have really have liked it for them to have taken it more with their style because that's the mark of a good cover to me. It's like you make something your own. But
Yeah.
as far as the tribute goes, it's pretty good,
pretty
isn't it? It's pretty good. I do like this album. When well, I like this album a lot, but I haven't listened out of the latter day Death stuff is the one I've listened to the least because back in like when I was younger, I wasn't mad keen on it. I think that you know the kind of the more straight up metal influence just kind of turned me off a bit. Back in those days, I thought it was a
Yeah,
step
see, I
down.
was always kind of into classic metal, as it was some of the stuff that was around for my music, my metal endeavors. I mean, obviously, the thing
Yeah,
that really started that made me think, yeah, I like metal was Slipknot. But however, before that, I do remember, like my dad would always put on Iron Maiden, and I enjoyed that and stuff. So I also
yeah,
enjoyed
no,
Judas
right, you know,
Priest. So it was kind of something that was always around. So and then off as like I said, being the huge Trivium fanboy for a year, Death was that album was a good place to go, and funnily enough, after that, What the Dead Men Say, the first single they put out, Catastrophist, has like straight up a whole death section.
yeah. I mean, and to be fair, I mean, Trivium have always had their classic metal
Yeah,
influences right on their sleeves, so you know,
that's why. Yeah,
it
they
makes
always
sense
said
that
they
you would
wanted to
have.
be heavier than the melodic bands and more melodic than the heavy bands, and
No,
I'd say they kind of they
exactly.
basically
So it makes
succeeded.
sense that you would have a bit more of a palette for
Mm.
this coming in. But as time's gone on, I do. Yeah, this album is stupid amounts of fun. It
Yes,
kind of feels as though,
but it's
and
also an emotional journey.
huh?
It's an emotional journey.
It is, but it also feels as though like it kind of to me felt as though whereas like you know the last like fucking three records before this had all been like you know really flexing the progressive element and which isn't like that's completely gone at all. You know you are dealing with brilliant fucking musicians. There's still going to be that progressiveness, that technicality is still going to be there. But this kind of feels a little bit more to me as though Chuck just wanted to write some really good fucking metal songs. You
The
know,
Death Row
oh look,
Face.
there's the white one.
This is the one. Yes, she wants to be death. She's been in a fight. She's got a car on her face.
brutal,
Beautiful thing.
brutal. No,
Brutal.
you can,
Her whole life has
you
been brutal.
yeah, no,
She
you
is a
can.
living monstrosity, mate. She was addicted. Genuinely, she
I
looked
mean,
like a
fall
fucking
addicted
crack
to
addict.
cocaine. She's the color of it, so you
Yeah,
know, it
we
makes
did.
perfect.
We did. We were gonna call her cocaine at one point. She came with us with the name Rehab, so she had a blister on her back, and
Cat called rehab.
yep, and she also fucking um, she did actually look like a cocaine addict. So she is a living monstrosity because we got her when she was a kitten. We rescued her. So yeah, living monstrosity. I'm fucking on it today.
Zingers.
Zing! At least someone's around to hear them for once.
Excellent.
Usually I
But
leave them alone and cry.
yeah, no, have yourself a little. But yeah, this, like I said, this it does feel as though Chuck wanted to just write some really good like metal tunes. You know what I mean? And I like these days I have all the fucking time in the world for that. There's some brilliant fucking stuff on here, and I think it's probably more memorable song for song than a couple of the previous ones because like I said, like the last three, I like to sort of take them in as like a whole album, like
Album,
you know
yeah.
what I mean, like prog
Yeah,
stuff. I
when
think
I'm listening to Sound of Perseverance, I'm usually listening to one song.
which is
No, I mean that as in like I think to myself, oh, I'll listen to Sound of Perseverance, but I'll just
yeah,
pick
no,
one
right.
song off of it usually, or like two or three.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like I do think of this as more of a collection of songs, which it makes sense that again it is them moving to something different. For them, it does make you wonder, like what might have been had we
Death
not
wouldn't
lost
have been.
Chuck.
Death
You know.
wouldn't have been.
Oh
After
yeah,
this.
he wanted to go on with Control Denied, didn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah. This is where, I mean, if you want to move on to the rankings, then obviously I could explain my whole opinion and idea on the thing. But who's going first?
All right. I'll go first
Ah,
with my rankings this time. So you know how you said that you were sort of like, oh, I'm gonna get kicked the shit out of, right? And I was just like, oh, don't worry, it's fine, so am I.
yeah, we always do on this.
I hate it. It's basically this is the exact reason why I found this difficult, because I've looked at this on my fucking phone screen and gone, is this what I'm actually
Yeah,
gonna put
I
at the
did that,
bottom?
but after the Black Dahlia murder one, I kind of just learned to go with my gut
Yeah.
and leave it. Look at it when the
Mate,
podcast
my
comes
number
on.
7 is Scream Bloody Gore. Like, it just is. I
You know
know,
what?
I know, it's
Lots of
crazy.
people would
Don't
agree.
get me wrong.
Lots of people would agree with that. I mean, it created it. Thrashers love it, but however, most of the people are like almost the weakest because it's just a fucking like it
It's one
created
of the
something,
very
but it's
first of
kind of
its
weak.
kind, but this band went on to do way better. That being said,
Yeah,
doing this discography ranking, going back to this, because like I said, I don't really delve that much. I haven't listened to this album crazy amounts, but I do love the thrashy energy of it. I love the murkiness of it, and it is
snare.
extremely fun. You know what I mean? It's great. It's a great time. It's just that it is where it is because I feel as though this band went on to fucking leap over what they achieved here in
Yeah,
every single step. So it kind of has to be for me at the bottom. But is it bad? Fuck no. And it's one of the very first death metal records. So you kind of got to give it a little bit of a fucking round of applause for what it did. And it is great. It's just yeah. This band went on to legit genius, I think. Whereas this is just an excellent death metal record because it's one of the first of its kind. I guess it still is, but the fact it is where it is speaks volumes of them as a band. That is my number 7. What's your number 7?
I just have to really mentally prepare for the abuse.
Go on.
I have my reasonings. My number 7. I'm pretty sure I've told you this before, but my number 7 is the Sound of Perseverance.
Fair enough.
Yes, I know. Boo me. Fucking throw everything at me. I'm not gonna have a life when this video goes up and George sees the end of this. So, goodbye. I'll give my final words at some point.
No. Why have you put this where you put it?
My reasoning for this, and this is like an opinion that I kind of stole, but I agree with, or I agree with this person's opinion. So basically, what it is this isn't death. This is in no way a death record. This is entirely Control Denied. It's the idea that Relapse were like, well, you contractually have to make one more album because they knew money, and Relapse like money. They do like
They
their
do,
money.
yeah.
Every CD by Relapse is stuffed with advertisement. It's like, fuck you have a website, go away. Anyways, so this is not a death album. It's entirely a Control Denied album, so it has no reason to be in the Death discography. And I'm not saying it's a bad album. In no way is this a bad album. No.
Right.
It's just that, in my eyes, it's a low because it just doesn't belong here. It belongs in Control Denied. And that is the only reason why I rank it as low. And honestly, this Death discography ranking was hard. So fucking extreme conditions demand for extreme
responses.
Extreme responses. That's it. The Truth album or something in it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So my number 7 is The Sound of Perseverance.
Man, the thing is, like,
kind.
I mean, I'll be kind to you
people
because
hear me
that
out,
reasoning does make sense, right? Like, it is, like you're not wrong. Like like that shift towards more classic heavy metal, it's prevalent, and it does feel as though, you know, these are retooled Control Deny songs. But I can't really say much because you know what, man, like I've only fucking like
And
years
also
ago.
kind of hurtful because it is the album that introduced me to this band. So you know I'm being truthful. You know I'm not
No,
giving you
right,
bullshit.
exactly.
I'm
You know what I
being
mean? You can't.
truthful.
But there you go. Like nostalgia doesn't always have to cloud everything. You know what I mean? But fair the fuck enough. Oh man, I fucking hated doing this, man. So
Jack, you
my
created a fucking rift.
I know my number six. My number six is fucking like Leprosy, but like what the gap between this album and the next one up is like a hair's width. I like, and I think this is one of those ones that could change on different days. I don't get me wrong, man. I think Leprosy is fucking is so good, right? But this is this band we're talking about.
Do better things.
Yeah, broken records, I'll do it, but it's a fact, right? Like this band's evolution is to the point where, like, yeah, at the moment I'm literally going chronologically up, but that's legitimately how I feel about them. It's one of the main reasons I kind of look up to them so much, is because the evolutions that they've taken at this point during their career. Anyway, I just think that they just kept bettering themselves, and this, you know, Leprosy's fucking brilliant. It's got like riffs on riffs on riffs, brilliant fucking songs, but you know, from where I'm putting it, it's just, it got bettered. I don't really have much more to say about it, really. But yeah, that's my number six.
That's
what is your?
No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. I'm not like that. But either way, yeah, my number six. I'm joining you in having the metalheads probably get the yardstick on us. My number six is Scream Bloody Gore.
Yeah.
It was definitely bettered. Just because it's the first death metal album doesn't mean it's the best death metal. Doesn't mean it's their best or anything like that. It was bettered.
Right.
That's not to say it's bad. It's a fucking great album.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And also, it was the album that made them change the name from Mantis to Death, and that was a very good call.
Yeah, Mantis is a bit fucking lame, isn't it?
Yeah.
Plus, I can't imagine like them being able to make a particularly cool logo, or as cool a logo with the name Mantis. Well, they just have a fucking praying mantis on the side like that, you know? Like, is it gonna? And it's just not quite as gnarly.
No, I'm pretty sure the old logo was just like drippy mantis. And I don't mean that as in like drip. I mean that as in blood drip.
Cold in bloods, guts.
Yeah, just like the letters were separated, because there is a Mantis demo. The letters were separated, and then, like, each one was like oozing or dripping, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
anyway,
No.
yes, Scream Bloody Gore, number six. Nothing's bad, but something has to be towards the bottom.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I do agree. It's fair enough. Like, half the reason I hated doing this is because, like, this is just as I was looking at this, and I was like, this is just funny now, because the next one is Spiritual Healing. It's like, part of being honest with yourself is being this ridiculous.
We're kind of
sometimes.
following the same, but at the same time, we're being like pretty fucking against each other for the moment.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'd say that we have somewhat in common is Scream Bloody Gore, because once we get to the rest of my list, you will see that our opinions are differing.
Yeah, no, I should imagine so. Fucking like it's a fucking great album. Like I said, easily Chuck's best vocal performance. Like, it's not even fucking close. Like, I actually almost consider ranking this higher just on those vocals alone, because I think the vocals and the lyrics too are fucking outstanding on this record. I think it's an absolute, like, one of the greatest of the entire era. Like, easily, like, it's so fucking good. And you know, again, they up their fucking songwriting, they up the technicality and their craftsmanship. It's great fucking stuff. But that being said, you know, bettered. I don't have anything else to say because I'm just being that predictable. It is that this is the common theme with this band for me, right? So that's what I'm putting there is bloody spiritual healing. Right. What's your next one?
I'm gonna disappoint you. My next one is individual thought
All right.
patterns.
No, that's fair
I'm
enough.
sorry, Jack. I like how this is the most like less argumentative and calmest album ranking we've done. Because usually we go all the time and shit like that, but this one we're respecting our opinions.
But because I with this, I don't feel as though I think a lot of it does come down to personal taste, right? Like I've come across a lot of people
because it's a very, very, very different.
Yeah,
story.
exactly. You know what I mean? Like I've met, I know of a fair few people who prefer like old school death, and I'm like, yeah, if you're into that more than, I mean, a lot of time with other bands, I would be into their less proggy stuff, but it like for me, the proggy half of death is like fucking genius level shit. So you know.
Yeah. Individual thought patterns. Maybe I'm not doing it justice because I've only heard it once.
But you are being honest, right? Like if you've only heard it once.
Yeah, because only my first listening, so it's like I haven't been able to nitpick that much. So it's the most honest opinion.
Well, yeah, it was like me with
yeah, that's my
me on the Black Dahlia murder one. Like you know, I was like. With Verminous, like I had it way lower than you, and it was like, well, this is the one I've listened to the least because it's the most recent. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, whereas for me, it's the one that I discovered.
Exactly, right? Like so, these kinds of biases are going to come into play when you rank anything. But yeah, you know, you've only listened to individual thought patterns the one time, and like I said, it's quite. I think it's probably their most like technical rhythmically. So it's kind of one that you do have to listen to a few times, but. Yeah. So what? Yeah. Why did you put? Why is this where you put it?
I mean, it's probably a hard album to grasp on your first listen through, and as well, I think the rest of the discography is more memorable in that case. Because I can tell you, the first times I listened to the rest of the albums, they were like instantly clicked, and maybe because some of these, my brain wasn't so bogged down with being death metal like almost 24/7. I mean, this is more like this isn't straightforward, but no way is this straightforward.
No.
But you know, it's like I didn't know nearly as many artists as a whole, not just in death metal, as I do now. Because at that time I was still kind of like boxed, and I was just kind of trying to find where I was. And at this point, like my brain is like. Music, and that's it. So
that's the way.
At this point, I have a lot of shit going on. So I'd say like it was interesting, but it's very hard to grasp as for a first listen.
Yeah,
I'd say other things are more memorable.
No, I would agree. I would definitely agree. It's there's not much in the way of hooks, is there? It's like certain some of the...
and you said there's a lot of fretless bass work on this album. I can literally not recall any fretless bass aside from on The Philosopher. But maybe that's just because The Philosopher is the one song that I've heard like hundreds of times by this point.
Yeah, no, you give it a bit more time. Give it a bit more time. In fact, it'll be interesting to like maybe at some point redo, like maybe not for like 2 hours, but like redo some, like revisit some discographies and sort of see how our opinions changed on them over time. Because like that does happen, and I think like. I've ranked this album higher than you.
Maybe if the podcast goes on for long enough, yes, we'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you know, I've ranked this album higher than you. No surprises, but yeah. I've listened to this album a lot, and there are definitely parts which I can remember, but it's because you know, it's not something you're just going to be able to grasp out of thin air. It's not. It's I'd say it's probably their least immediate album because like on Human, there's like riffs that are really sticky still. Like obviously it's proggy, and obviously Symbolic is really fucking memorable in a lot of ways. But the sound, but yeah, it is probably their least memorable record. But it's for me there is a fun there in how technical it is, but. I respect where you're coming from with that because that is fucking fair enough. So that is your number. I'm shit with numbers. What is it?
Number 5. That was. So now it's your number 4.
All right. Um, so that means the number 4, which is for me, it's the Sound of Perseverance. Um, so I really do. I've this album is probably the biggest grower out of any of them. At one point, this would have definitely been my least favorite, for sure,
Shit.
back in the day. But like, I find this album to be a lot of fun to listen to, and I do appreciate your point of it. You know, not being a death.
Maybe though it isn't valid because we maybe should just be thinking of the music instead of the reason
But
of this album. But you know.
this is one of the things when you're sort of critiquing music, right? Like, because I'm very much of the belief that like people who try and completely remove bias from their opinions are fools. You can't, because it's impossible. It's the same with any kind of art, right? Like the kind of like the subjectivity of how you view art and the kind of the paradigm that you look at it through and the information that surrounds it informs the way you think about things, right? So you know what I mean? Like trying to go, oh, I'm just going to listen to the music. You should to an extent, but at the same time, like, you know, you're knowing of that these were essentially retooled Controlled and I songs, then this album was done as a contractual obligation, right? The fact that you know that, and if that does make you enjoy it less, it's not like that's false, right? But for me, like, I mean, I was aware of the fact that this was a contractually obligated record, but at the same time, like, I just find this album to be a great metal record. Like,
Yeah.
I get a lot more. Not a lot more, but it's like a good combination of like the sort of the more straight up thrills of the older stuff with like more of the technicality. Like it's like a good mixture, and like yeah, the classic metal influence coming through. You know, I enjoy the kind of the grandiosity of it all, and it's a great fucking time. There's some serious riffs, and I've grown to love Chuck's vocals on this too. I think it fits really well, and it's pretty fucking killer. But yeah, that is my number 4. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Symbolic.
Fair fucking play. Yeah.
Yeah. No. This album was my favorite for a little bit, as I said earlier, but I think it got beaten out by other stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But no, epic fucking album, great. It's
epic is the word.
Yeah, it's hard to give a descriptive review at this point because my brain is kind of fried at the moment.
It's too fucking hot in my room. I feel ya.
So I barely slept the night before, so at this point it's like, what?
What is it? What is it that draws you to the album? Why have you put it where you put it?
Epicness.
That'll do. That'll do.
That's literally the only way that I think of this album is epic, and as well, I guess it had one of the riffs that well, not riff. I guess it's a lick that really challenged me as a guitar player. Because when I started playing death metal, obviously I was basically only playing Trivium songs, and I was like, death metal is actually kind of simple compared to Trivium. Now I know that's wrong because some of the rhythms you have to play and stay in that groove is hard.
Yeah.
That fucking riff fucked me over big time. And I remember
you bastard, Chuck.
Yeah, and
why would you do this to me?
There's the tapping riff, that one. I remember I had to go for the sock to be able to wrap it around my guitar because I was getting so much noise from the other strings when I was trying to learn it. That was one of the songs that has challenged me the most in my guitar playing time. So
it holds a special place in your heart.
Yes. Crystal Mountain, by the way. I don't know if I said Crystal Mountain, but yeah, Crystal Mountain. Sure, it's the big song off that album, but like,
this is the thing. Like, it's weird that sometimes bands pick songs as the single off of the album because they're the best song on the album. It's funny. Weird. Sometimes they do that. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird how that works.
It's really weird.
Like,
but yeah. Also, I guess the fucking Without Judgment, just because of the lyrical theme of that song, I fell in love with that song just from the lyrical theme because I thought it was great. And
yeah,
the one about pets, by the way. And
Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah.
I didn't even know that, so I appreciate that. I had no idea that's what the lyrics were about. So it's a good bit of insight.
But yeah, that is my number 4. Symbolic.
Banging, banging. No, fair fucks, mate. Fair fucks. Right. Which means then we are on to my number 3, which means my number 3 is human. Human is to me like yeah. So from this point onwards, from this is where we move into like where I genuinely think this band is like genius level. So this to me is like an actual like basically a 10 out of 10 record. And I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, especially considering the
I
time,
think the mix kind of it sounded a bit weird, the mix.
do you know, it took me quite a long time to kind of get around the mix, because I remember trying to listen to this album when I was about 14 or 15,
Yeah.
something like that. And I do remember at that point I did find the sort of the way that
the solos and flattening of emotions just they kind of
yeah, but I mean, you do have to kind of give it a little bit of leeway, because you know you were.
Yeah.
It's
moment of
1990.
clarity.
You know, I mean,
That's another death
you know
song.
these fucking producers
just
were
going off on
still figuring out how to fucking like make these records, and here you've got this
Record this
band
shit,
bringing
yeah.
in you know a musical combination that I don't think anyone had done before at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you've kind of got to let it be what it is. But yeah, the progressiveness of this album I think is still so fucking astonishing. You know, like I said, it takes me, and that's all I ever really ask from the best music, is that like when I shut my fucking eyes, I'm somewhere else. And for an extreme metal record to not only do that at the time, but still be able to do that, like there are some of the really progressive kind of free form elements of this album that they started getting into are still like I just listen to them and I just go like, shit, that's next level. I mean, it's wonderful, and there's some great individual tracks on it as well. My brain's fried too, so I'm going to keep it to that. Yeah, that's my number 3. Is Human. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is also Human.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, we're in agreement. We got one that's the same. But yeah, I'd say all the same points as you. I mean, obviously, as mainly a guitar player, this I remember trying to learn Flattening of Emotions, and it's another song that challenged me. And I remember back then. I mean, it's this is not that long ago where I was trying to learn these songs. It's like a year, less than a year. So it's weird when I say, "Oh, I think it back to it," but it kind of shows how my mentality has changed, because I wasn't used to being challenged by songs, and if I couldn't like learn it off the bat, because most songs that I do learn, I'm not learning by ear most of the time. Sometimes I do when I really want to learn the song, but I have it here, so I'm using tabs. So it take me like an hour or two to learn a song sometimes, and I'd usually skip the solo, which pretty fucking ignorant of me. Nowadays, I do try and learn the solo to get ideas of how to play solos.
That being said, though, some of fucking like Chuck's like solos, just as an example,
No,
some of his
solos I can't. Yeah, I can't. Yeah,
some of them are
some of
entirely
them, no.
skippable. It's like, yeah, no, I think you can fucking have that for yourself, mate.
Because he does the thing that I do not like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember trying to learn Flattening of Emotions. That riff really fucked with me. Fucking Suicide Machine as well. The last that one fucked with me because that one moves weirdly, and that fucking riff. It's because he's like does hammer offs, but he pulls off onto a fucking open note at the same time as pulling off the string on the bottom. It's really weird.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I don't play, but I can like figuratively imagine in my brain why that would be an absolute asshole to try and play. But yeah, but fuck it again. Like this is
comprehension gave me a bit of a difficult time. I mean, that one's the simplest, like probably the simplest song on the album. But
Yeah, I mean that's
remember
probably why
it
they
was
made it the single, you know. But
yeah. What was it? Oh, what fucking riff is it? One of the riffs has a really weird, like it's power chords, but it's a very weird, like changing of like when the note changes and stuff.
yeah,
Oh, dude, I think it's
essentially what you're saying is that the musicianship on this album is fucking serious business.
yeah, it's really, really, really good. And
Yeah,
Bulldozer
no,
drumming is great.
yeah, like it, I mean, it set the fucking standard for the time. I think
And like so many of these riffs always stuck in my head. It's insane. Like Flatten of
well,
Emotions,
that's
where
what
it's
I
like
mean. Like it's so memorable, you know, and to make something
yeah,
technical and memorable, I mean, that's no easy feat, you know. But it's absolutely the case. It's absolutely the case. I'm glad we agree on something because I feel as though. No, I don't feel as though. I know as though that from this point we deviate pretty intensely. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Is anything more
we
to add on
almost agreed it
Human?
was SPG. Hmm?
Anything more to add on Human?
No, no,
All
that's
right,
my
sweet.
review.
In which
Not my
case,
review. That's my mine done. That was my third one. Human.
lovely. All right, which means on to my number two, which is individual thought patterns.
Who would
Like
have
I've said,
guessed? I knew I was right.
yeah. No, I mean, we've talked about it before, so you knew,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah,
Death is one of those bands where like you know your favorite album and everyone else knows your favorite album. So
yeah, no, for sure. But individual thought patterns, like I said, it's one of the reasons why I went fucking ham about this while talking about it because I kind of wanted to maybe inspire whoever watches these maybe just to listen to it because it feels like a fucking crime to me that it doesn't get talked about as much as the
yeah,
rest of them because it's just I got hooked in years ago by the bass playing because like I said I've always loved bass playing in death metal specifically and I've just always kind of stuck with it just because I like the bass playing and then everything else kind of followed and yeah, for me, it's an absolute standout tech death record. It's I love how naturalistic it is for like a tech death record. I still feel kind of weird calling it tech death, knowing what else gets
yeah,
sort of pulled in with that. But I guess that is how I view it. But you know, it's so fun. It's dizzying, like how good the sort of the rhythm section in particular everyone is on this record, and it fucking picks me up and takes me for a ride through a fucking through just rhythm. That is how I look at this record. It's just the most rhythmically challenging album that they ever put out in terms of just the drumming and the bass playing. But of course, there's still some fucking serious riffs going on here. And you know, Chuck is great, but like I think that might be why it's the least talked about record because obviously you know people usually venerate Chuck you know as being a legend as we all do when someone gets taken from us too soon. I think this is the one where the other members of the band really shine on this.
yeah,
But yeah, even though it is the least hooky one, and I generally it's weird, like because I tend to go for hookier records. I always like catchy, but then this is definitely their least catchy record. But I love the just the adventurousness of the drumming and the rhythm section is just unfucking believable on this. Essentially, I love it so much. I love it so much. One of my favorite bass performances on any metal record too.
yeah.
It's just so fucking good, man. Like I love it to pieces. Individual thought patterns is my number two. What's your number two?
My number two is Spiritual Healing. Wow, I know
Wait.
that I've only listened to it twice, but those two times has made me realize that I was missing out on something in life. And I was
I'm
missing out
glad
on
that I could be the
spiritual
one
healing.
to sort of be
Because I've been
the
meaning to listen
spark.
to it forever, but I just didn't for some reason. And yeah, now I've fallen in love with this album. Um,
Sick.
like I've said so many times, I was hooked from just the altar in the future, and then afterwards, spiritual healing. The track itself is just insanely good. Um, the album cover was always interesting to me because it's dark and
Extremely.
comical. Yeah, it's just colorful, which is weird. I don't know, you know, I kind of like stuff that sort of breaks the norm, and obviously I like stuff that's totally in the norm. But as far as music taste goes, I mean, I listen to about every generic death metal band, but you know, it's because I like some of the riffs, and
Some of them.
some of them are a bit too plain. Um, so yeah, I don't know if I have much to say because at this point, uh, yeah, you can probably tell I'm struggling at the moment.
Spiritual healing, good.
Good, yes, but good. I feel like man on album cover. Good. Okay. Is that? Eh, I think it'd be fine. It's yeah. Um, basically, moral of the story is preachers are bad, God sucks. In reality,
Yeah.
Christianity was all created because a woman cheated on her husband and was like, the big man in the sky gave it to me, and then everyone believed in her. What the fuck, man?
Big woman moment. But anyway,
Big woman moment.
moving swiftly on because
My number two
I'm
is
not a
spiritual healing.
sexist pig.
What's your number one? I wonder what
Um,
it is.
I mean, like you fucking knew it. Anyone that knows me that's talked to me about death knows
Silimo.
it's symbolic. Like
Silimis.
it is
Silom.
symbolic. I mean, I did honestly like at one point have to really think to myself of whether like um individual thought patterns was going to overtake it because I really loved it on my last listen, and then I got round to this album again and I was just like, no, this album's like one of my all time favorites in metal in general. It has yeah, this album holds a really special place in my heart, man. I love it so much. Like I really do love it so much. It's yeah, it's the first one I listened to by them, and it's still my favorite. Again, the epicness of this record, and like I've said many times, the thing I look for in music in general, that all of my favorite music is stuff where I listen to it and I kind of go somewhere in my mind when I listen to it. And this is, for me, it's the album of theirs that does that the most for me personally, because of the epicness and the atmosphere of this record. I think is fucking astonishing. Plus, on top of that, right, there are just some unreal riff moments, man. There's one riff, you know, I think it is A Thousand Eyes. I can never remember like I always forget it until it comes round again and I listen to it and I go, that riff fucking kills. It's so good. It's like literally just in metal in general. For me, this is the perfect mixture of like being cerebral and heady and kind of like spacey, and then coming back around with killer fucking riffs. It's like the perfect balance. I'm not sure there have been many records that have come close to that particular balance of things. I think this is Chuck's finest hour in terms of like crafting memorable songs and just being a fucking riff god, like
Yeah.
being a fucking king of solos too. Like I think this is a ridiculous
Yeah, he
fucking
has a
record.
really sick solo on the fucking acoustic guitar on Crystal Mountain.
Yeah, mate, that's like that might be the best
That
part of
is
the whole song.
ultimate Chad, because it's like you're not expecting it, and all of a sudden this on this fucking
That might be the best
acoustic
moment of
guitar
that
is
whole song, to be
Chad as fuck.
honest. It's so good. Like, and you know, bringing in those kinds of like acoustic moments is kind of a cliche even by that point, but they fucking kill it. You know what I mean? It's like the perfect balance of progressiveness and straight up heavy metal thrills. Like, what can you not love? It's so good. I love it so much. Chuck, whenever I listen to this, I just think, man, Chuck was fucking king.
Yeah.
What a fucking record. Yeah, no, Symbolic is my number one. Absolutely is my number one. What is your number one record? I know what it is.
Oh, my number one's Leprosy. If you know me and have ever spoken to me about death, you know Leprosy's my favorite. Maybe
Yeah.
is that generic of me for being death metal man? Probably. But like I said, I love the intro to this album. I know it's simple and it might be sounding weak, but to me it's crushing how just the dun dun dun. The fucking
It's
tones are
hench.
great.
It's undeniably hench.
Hench. And then offers the next riff that follows it is just like the tremolo pick, but really slow. it doesn't move notes until like a bar later. Like each note lasts like a bar or something. The notes take forever to move, and it's just really winding, and it's like feels like trudging. You're trudging your way through.
Like you're in
obviously-
quicksand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
leprosy will take control of your flesh, and
Beautiful.
yeah, fucking obviously the classic pull the plug. I mean,
God,
when
I
your
love it.
strings pull the plug, you feel it.
In your chest.
Yeah, and you feel it in the heart. I feel it
In your
in the
tits.
I feel it in the spewage of a logo on my t-shirt.
Exactly.
Fucking choke on it. Like I say, is to me that is because you know some bands have the song that is named after themselves, like their
Yeah.
band name. Choke on it is what death is, but they didn't want to be cringe by having a song called Death, because obviously death is all around. There's a lyric in there.
Yeah.
And
But
to me, that
it's a
is like
badass
death.
moment, though.
It is.
Without
Choke
question.
on it. Death is all around.
Mm.
Fucking Forgotten Past. I always love the lyrics of that one. I mean, it's simplistic of like, oh, the dude was a murderer and now he isn't, but he's seen the corpses of his past and everything's come back to him. I kind of like that shit. Yeah. The album cover once again kind of destroys the norm of having. Well, I mean, there wasn't really a norm at this point, because to me, this is the first blueprint of real death metal. Because the Scream Bloody Gore had a bit of thrash in there, but this was death metal, pure death metal. Right,
Yeah.
So this is the like blueprint because of death metal. So
Yeah.
you know, there wasn't really a norm to break, but it's just kind of like it sets it apart.
Yeah,
by having
it goes to
styles.
show that even when there wasn't much of a norm to break, one must have
broke
existed
it.
enough
Yeah.
for them to break it, because
Yeah.
that's just that was just their nature. Yeah.
But yeah, so my number one is Leprosy.
Fucking yeah, no, neither of us are shocked at each other's number ones,
No.
but like, you know, we're true blues sticking to our guns. This has still been like the order of everything else. I don't know about you, like I was quite surprised at where I put certain things, like the fact that literally my bottom three were just the first three in chronological order. I was like, but that is how I
I
feel.
thought
But
that you'd have spiritual healing higher. I don't know why, but something told me that you'd be a spiritual healing guy.
yeah, I was thinking about putting it higher, but I ended up like that. I just kind of had to go with my gut. If I was to be given a bit more time with that, I reckon it could be higher though, because I was floored by those vocals, like without question. I was absolutely floored by them. But yeah, it has been fun listening to a bunch of death. Oh man, yeah, I think both our brains are fucking fried after that though. It's so fucking hot in my room. I feel as though I'm about to burst.
Tired as fuck.
Yeah. This has been fucking fun though. This has been great fun.
I'm sorry that towards the end of this I probably got really dry. I can feel it already that I'm very boring at the moment, but that's acceptable.
Man, like fucking who gives a shit, man? It's dry and humid
like
outside.
Many people make it to the end of the video anyways. Also, one more subscriber.
If you're still here, you are a fucking homie. I'll just
and that would
say
be George. George always makes it to the end if he finds it interesting.
Well, George,
and hopefully Jack makes it to the end since he requested for this.
Yeah,
and we also said, isn't it crazy how we did this on the day you graduated from university? Because you definitely
mate, honestly, the timing could not have been more perfect. I'm so proud of you, man. Perfect. I'm so proud of him. I'm genuinely, I could not be more proud of Jack as it stands.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this has been super fun. Death is quite good. We have an interview in inverted commas in the works for sort of like we're going to record it on Sunday by the looks of things. But yeah, we've got an interview is coming up.
The other person complies.
Yeah, I was wondering how much to say just in case it does or doesn't happen.
I mean, I think it might be pretty obvious if the people watch the MMR of who this might be, because I was kind of hoping for this.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not Travis Renard.
Yeah, no, mate. If it was, if it was Trev, I'd be like, I probably wouldn't even be here. I'd be shooting through the walls. But we'll see about that. Keep your fingers crossed and your beans beaned and your eyes
Beans
sharpened or whatever.
kneaded.
Yeah, and
Yes.
we'll definitely see about that. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I reckon we should end this now because I
Yeah.
need to fucking like put some ice cubes against my head. But
Going to
this has
sleep.
been great. This has been great fun. Go listen to some death,
Yeah.
listen to some brutal shit, and eat
Eat
some
fucking
fucking beans.
Have a
You know
nice.
the score. Right.
Yeah.
I'll see you later, boys and girls. Have a good evening.